And we're starting.
1, 2, 3.
We
So
are here.
ever now?
So you and I don't know each other, but we are internet enemies, I guess.
Yeah, public enemy number one.
Yeah, but we're not at all. It's not even like that. But
Well, I
I
don't know, Devin. I watched
mhm.
I watched a little bit of your video,
Which
and
one?
I couldn't get through it, and not just because of you, but
Yeah,
I don't like watching myself,
that makes
you know,
sense.
with live commentary. That was so I only saw the first maybe 5 minutes of it. So I'm not positive what your like main
Mm. Well,
points
we
of
can go over some of the stuff, but if you listen to the whole thing, you'll see the evolution of my opinion of you. And by the end, I'm like, yeah, this girl is harmless and cool.
See, that's
And
what Alf said. He was like, "Get to
yeah,
the end, it's not that bad." But I maybe tomorrow. I
yeah, it's a hot mess and it's a lot to take in. It's also weird if you're new to the internet. There's a weird sinking feeling in your stomach when people are talking about you that you don't know and it's negative.
yeah,
Like
I'm sure you're familiar with that.
exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, you let's let it be known. You became aware of me somehow through the algorithm, but also you're a Vouch fan, and so you had your marching orders
You
that
said
I'm a
vouch on purpose. I'm pretty sure it's Vosh.
Vosh.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't. I couldn't give a fuck. But yeah,
yeah.
he is a very troubling individual. I
In what regards? I mean, I
appearance,
guess appearance.
mentality, pomposity, just everything about him really
Wow, I
irks me.
didn't
But
realize we're so appearance focused. I got like my own little fucking appearance rating too.
oh, I can only imagine. I mean, I seriously respect you for being on the internet as a woman because it is a hostile environment, and that's not a joke. I mean, all the Spurgs out there, they're happy to dogpile on women, but they're not a woman online, and it is a fucked up scenario. And so I want to preemptively apologize for everyone giving you shit
No,
because
no. I mean, for me, I was like, whatever. I have a tiny channel, so on
yeah.
one hand, I'm like, oh fuck, what have I got myself into? But on the other hand, I'm like, oh cool, like I got like 40 new subs. That's tight. I'm okay with that.
So you want new subs? You're in this. You said earlier, if no one was watching, you wouldn't do anything
Well,
online.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be uploading videos if no one was.
So what kind of content do you want to make? Because you did a reaction video to me, and I haven't seen any of your other videos. What other stuff
Oh, it's
have you
just
done?
random. It's like really, I don't have like a specific like. I'm not trying to like create a fucking brand or something. It's just random videos like I edit on my phone of just topics that I'm interested in.
Okay, give me a
I did
few.
like
So,
I did a video on Stefan Molyneux,
hmm,
just going through his comments. I've done a video. I did another video about. I swear to fucking God, I'm not even a Kim Kardashian fan. That's the part that really triggers
done
me.
two on her.
And like, but I did do a video on her and Alice Marie Johnson. So yes, that's why I was interested in your video in particular,
Hmm.
just because I'm familiar with that case and how it was before. I'm not familiar with her newer cases though.
Yeah, and that's my point. For like, I didn't research that case that much. I just read the Wikipedia on that woman, and I
Mhm.
thought it was interesting the gap between how it was being presented. Like she was just a
Yeah,
very low level first time, but she was actually quite seriously involved in a drug ring. And
yeah,
so I was just calling a little bullshit on that. But my issue was not really with her; it was with all
yeah.
the other people that came after her.
hmm The thing I'm having, do you really think that Kim Kardashian's just out there like wanting to like get violent people out of jail?
Yeah, she is. I mean,
Really? But like,
whether
what do you
whether she
think?
wants to or not, she is. So it's either she's stupid or she's evil, but it's one of the two.
I mean, a lot of people are falsely in prison. We have a very like wonky criminal justice system. Uh, so for me, it's more likely. I just feel like there's probably a bit more to these cases than Kim Kardashian just likes the bleeps.
Well, she does like the bleeps, and it's very noteworthy that she's only focusing on getting black people out of jail. Wouldn't you say that's an interesting observation?
Well, I mean, they are like a very large segment of people who are incarcerated. So statistically, it's not that.
I think it's actually around 50-50 whites and blacks. I just read that stat the other
Yeah.
day.
Oh, yeah. That's well.
But I
Yeah.
think,
It's 50-50. I guess it's just more than like their general population. They're like overrepresented in like
uh,
comparison to their population.
of course, they are. But there's a reason for that, which would probably be a point of
Bring it
disagreement
on.
with us.
Bring it on.
But
Are you a race realist? Are you?
no, the title is a slur and it's meaningless to me. But
Really?
I'm realistic about race. I mean, if you're asking me, do I believe race is a legitimate concept? The answer is
Mhm.
yes. And I mean, this is such an interesting thing when people say race is a social construct. We shouldn't even have it as a notion. And the blacks and the Hispanics and the Asians are like, no, 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 we want race. Like race means something to us. Please don't strip us of our identity. So it's
Uh,
only white guilted white people who freak on the concept of race.
I don't think I agree with you on that. And also the thing, my perception of people who are race realists is it's like obviously there's phenotypical differences between the races that you can observe based on their
Mm-hmm.
recent like geographic ancestry, and obviously there's gonna be a difference in what people are good at, and there can be differences in populations. That's possible, but what I don't see the data backing is the idea that there's it's like super useful to group people together based on like their external characteristics, and then to publicly state that they have like an intrinsically less intelligence, or
What do you mean publicly state they have less intelligence? I mean, these numbers are what the numbers are, but I I don't really group people like that. It's just a way of talking about a trend. So within a group of people, but it is arbitrary. I mean, we could talk about people of California. How are their SAT scores compared to people of Nevada? It's
yeah.
just as random. Or you can look at things through race because there are patterns that play out over and over again. And to be ignorant to that, it seems like a real wasted opportunity. It seems like willful blindness.
I mean, I'm sure, like, I can admit that there's a lot of people on the left who are willing to have a difficult conversation. So they'll, gloss over facts. Like with Alice Marie Johnson, it's easier for
Hmm.
people to process her as like nonviolent offender, like, oh, she smoked weed, instead of it being like obviously a little more complicated.
Yeah.
But the thing about, well, it's like obviously as a progressive, I believe that like obviously there are disparities, that
Hmm.
exists objectively. It's just I disagree with, the cause and the solution. I don't think it's
Well, which disparities are you concerned about? Because there's a
I mean
bunch of them that are kind
yeah,
of random. Or
it seems people are mostly, it's like whenever people are talking about this, they're talking about like race and IQ and like race and like it's almost always discussed in regards
okay,
to black people, you know?
yeah, but let's look at that because that tells us a lot. That's the one difference that they care about, and they care about that because it doesn't reflect well on the bleep race, and so they are hurt about by that. They're emotionally a little bit distraught over that fact, and the
Is it a
writing is on the
fact
wall.
though? Is it a
So,
fact?
so no, but we're not even talking about the truth of it because that's a separate conversation. But just notice that we're not talking about penis length. We're not talking about uh, sprinting ability or the high jump. We're not talking about any of that stuff.
Uh-huh.
Life expectancy, nothing like that. We're talking about IQ because they feel like they're on the short end of the stick. Meanwhile, and I'm not even going to mention whether or not it's true because that usually just derails conversations and people freak. But let's notice a few things. How could we tell if it's true? You tell me, what would convince you that we can tell average IQs between races? Do you think that's possible to document and to study?
Well, to determine like exactly what percentage is genetically fixed, then
Okay.
that it would be.
No, no. Okay, you're talking about causation. I'm talking about the actual facts. So,
Oh,
how
like
these
what?
people do
How?
on tests. Like,
Oh no, that's like that is. It's a fact that there's disparities in
right.
IQs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that.
So you're getting to the why part, and you're nervous that the why has something to do with biology and not culture.
I don't feel too nervous on it because I feel like uh, it just seems like a lot of times like people who believe that like race is like intrinsically linked to intelligence, it seems like they always have like a handful of studies and stuff that are generally not broadly accepted in the scientific community.
I think a,
um
a lot of that is what the mainstream does, which is they kill anyone who even explores this as an avenue of study. Um, to me, what's more interesting to me than which race is on average brighter than the other races is the resistance to even talking about this.
yeah.
So let's take a look at the gap between Jews and Asians and whites. White people are not really that concerned about it. Are you? I mean, can you admit that there are millions of people smarter than you? Because I can. There are millions of people smarter than me.
Yeah, of course. But the thing is, I'm not in a particularly like disenfranchised group. In my
Why?
opinion.
But why? You and I are in the
Uh,
same boat. So
that's a
you,
huge, that's a
okay.
big question.
No, but
Because I'm a white woman who was born in this time period, so
uh-huh.
I'm not extremely discriminated against based on like my immutable characteristics. So I feel like it's less of a it's
You're
less of
cute.
a bullet. Also, when whites, it's like okay, whites. It's such a huge gap, but because it's like okay, sure, Asians have a like higher IQ by like what, like 5 points.
It's pretty significant.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying it's so much more significant with the black and white IQ gap that I feel
Is
like
that
it carries a little more weight to say that someone's IQ is like borderline retarded.
okay? Well, let me ask you: is that our fault or their fault?
Our fault or their fault? I think
No,
it's
honestly.
I that's like a very complicated question. It's not any white person who's living today's fault. But I do think
Okay.
that there's been an accumulative like experience over centuries, of people
But,
being enslaved and
I know, but I know you went to slavery. But what does that have to do with someone's
no,
brain function?
well, because if you're not in a similar like socioeconomic status, having access to the same resources, nutrition, and also
Oh,
extremely
nutrition.
important like
Oh.
critical formative years, like where there's so many studies on like childhood neglect and how the brain fucking like
Hmm.
rewires if it's like exposed to certain traumas or not.
So
Like
you're chastising the parenting of the blacks in the black community?
I'm saying they're not on an equal playing field. There's not
Okay.
equal resources. They're not like this long history of familial wealth being passed down generation to
What does
generation.
wealth have to do with brain function?
It has to do with having the resources and stability to have the healthy brain development, and to be able to have the resources to pursue intellectual matters.
I mean, the thing is, you're tacking on other problems that are worthwhile, and we can discuss those. But I think they're very minor when it comes to this. So, for example, malnutrition. So, if some kid just has no food and no diet whatsoever, yeah, he might not maximize his potential intellectually. But that is not the majority of what's we're witnessing. And
So what do you think it is? You think it is? It's like
well,
you think this
you
part
mentioned
is genetic?
it's. I'm almost amazed by the question where you say, "Do you think race has something to do with IQ?" Of course it does. It's like saying, "Does your brain have something to do with your brain?" Yes, biological differences. Our biology is us. So how could it not be completely intertwined with how your brain works?
It's more about how the races are like. Like I know you don't get triggered if I say social construct, but it is
Hmm.
a social construct that was created before we like mapped the human genome or had like these huge
Right.
jumps in progress in genetics. And I feel like the way that the things we're learning, they don't fit into these categories. Like when you talk about black, it's like,
Hmm.
I'm sure and heard a million times that like Africa is an extremely genetically diverse place. So it's like I do think, and also if you go back like 2,000 years, we all have like a common ancestor. So it's
I
like
get
you
that.
can say like the races split off however long ago initially, but there's been so much like intermixing and stuff since then.
Correct.
It's just a really
Okay.
a
What if
sloppy
it,
category.
it, it is a general way, but we're talking about billions of people, so we have to generalize.
Yeah,
And I
it's
mean,
just is that the best and most useful way to generalize?
I think pattern recognition is quite useful. I think if we just put our blinders on and just focus on like one little microcosm of a situation at a time, I don't think we ever actually learn things or understand the world. And so you talked about race mixing, where you say it's not clear cut, like this race is that group of people and this race is that group, and it changes over time, and I acknowledge that. But did you know, or are you aware that blacks who have intermixed with whites tend to have higher IQs? So,
Uh, I mean, there's a multitude. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with all the arguments I'm going to give
mhm,
you. So now is the point where I say, like, oh, well, there's colorism in the black community, and like
okay,
someone is half white, then they're like half
I love it.
privileged. Like,
You are fully versed in the regressive universe, and I like that. I mean, but colorism
That's
is
how I've gone. It's just I've had these arguments so many times, and it's like I just don't. it just seems so like,
Okay, but
I believe that you're genuine. I believe that you genuinely believe that. I hope you believe I'm being genuine and not just
okay,
like doing mental gymnastics to like
but
avoid a harsh truth. I know that's
no,
what most people think.
I understand
But
that you tend to pivot and bring up other tangential topics like wealth
well,
inequality or
to me there
colorism, which
but
okay.
that's to me is the reason why there is the disparity. So it's like very relevant.
You think poor
So
people cannot perform well? Actually, there are some genius chess players who are homeless. I've seen this phenomenon happen a lot, where you'll get, and often people of color, in New York in the parks, and they'll hustle you. They'll take your money.
uh-huh.
But if you look at the top 100 chess players, there's not one who are black. I think there's 2 black grandmasters out of thousands in the world, and that's just one example. But let me take a couple steps back because I think you're kind of misunderstanding me and who I am. I haven't talked about race like this in 2 years. Like, this is not a topic that interests me because you would think that if someone comes in and goes, "Hey, whites have a higher IQ than black," like, what is this, a dick measuring contest? Like, even if that's true that whites have a higher IQ on average, that doesn't mean my IQ is higher. And it's still the case that millions of people are smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, me, and a black guy sit down, we can all agree there's millions of people that are smarter than us, and we are smarter than millions of people. Okay, great. Now that we got that out of the way, let's measure our dicks, measure our bank accounts, and how about we talk and be friends and like do something useful instead of this emotional battle?
I mean, you say that, but when I watch your videos, it doesn't seem like you're taking an approach that would lead to like more unity or understanding.
I,
Because like
I think it does actually. I think I'm
really,
addressing, yeah, I think I'm addressing the dishonesty, and what I find it to be is patronism. I don't think you are respecting black people by making excuses for them.
mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes to crime, things like that, just ghastly things. I would hold people accountable for that. So in my community, and I don't think my community is the white community. I mean, right now I'm in Rio de Janeiro. I'm like the only white guy down here.
Yeah.
Um, but I just find that people have a psychological meltdown on the issue of race. Are you hearing popping? Is that on your end or mine?
I didn't notice it. No,
Okay,
be anything. I don't know.
I'm not sure. But like, I want racial unity. I want people to stop obsessing about race. I want the far left, which is where you're from, to cease to let go of it, just to stop, to see through the bullshit.
But
Hold on. Are you? I'm just trying to see if that's on my end or yours.
oh, um,
Okay, it is your end. Is your
is
mic?
it?
Are you like
Oh,
rubbing
maybe
up
I was
against
like
something?
touching the microphone
Yeah,
more.
you're touching the mic. There you go.
Is it better now?
Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay, yeah, it's just being.
So let me speak your language and speak to the regressive mind.
Okay.
I love black people. Some of my favorite. Well, I've dated them. I had long-term relationships with one of them. My family comes from South Africa. My father, my uncle, my grandfather dedicated their lives to African music. I've visited Africa multiple times. Some of my favorite sports heroes, Kobe Bryant. I'm devastated that he's gone. I love Denzel Washington. Love me some Morgan Freeman. Love just a whole assortment. There's incredible black people down here in Brazil. Um, they are fantastic in the arts, in the sciences. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Just there's countless examples of black excellence all around the world that I'm happy for. I love their swagger. I love their contributions to the country. But there are things I don't like about them too, and I'm not going to shy away from that. Their criminal element is absolutely outlandishly disproportionate to what it should be. It's totally unacceptable. And I've
What
lived
do you
in
think
multiple.
causes that? Do you think it's like the
Well,
testosterone, the
that's a
IQ, the like
very valid.
murder gene? What's up? Can you hear me? I don't know if it got disconnected. I can't hear anything right now, so I don't know if it got like disconnected or something.
Hold on.
Oh, okay.
I'm back. Are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. I got a loose connection. So
Yeah.
the first answer is the criminals are responsible for the disproportionate crime, which
But
might
when you
seem,
see such huge disparities,
yeah.
it's like, so I'm like going past like an individual level. I know like,
Hmm.
people make their own choices to a degree, but obviously I'm more,
To a degree. What do you
Well,
mean?
if you want to like get into it, like you could go over like does free will even
Oh my
exist?
God, you went free will defense.
Listen.
You try. Hey, what am I supposed to call you anyway? Do you have a stage
Uh
name?
oh, you could just call me Femoid.
Femoid. What does that even mean?
What? You're not familiar with Femoid?
No, what is that?
Are you?
I'm from
You're
the
fucking with
70s.
me.
Okay, wait a minute.
You're fucking with me.
What's a redheaded's name? Who's the redhead from Roger Rabbit? What was her
Jessica
name?
Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit. Can we call you Jessica?
Or you can call me Cookie. That's one of my other aliases.
That's such a stripper name. Have you ever
It
stripped?
is. Yeah, actually, I have.
Have you?
Yeah.
Was it full nude or just a topless bar?
It was just topless. It was only a few times. It was a fucking disaster. Yeah.
Was it bad for the money or the degradation or the management?
It was a well, I have a past in addiction, so it was
Mm.
very toxic
Mm-hmm.
environment, just real like
The,
the worst shit you could fucking imagine.
was it the girls that were a bad influence or the customers or the
Uh
boss?
well, I guess everyone was doing drugs there, so it's like they were all kind of a bad influence, and I was probably a bad influence too. So
Yeah. Well, I
but
congratulate you for making it out of that dark stage of your life and trying to find balance and right the ship, because it's a common story. I get a
yeah,
lot of emails, a lot of guys reaching out to me who are in bad places and come from traumatic backgrounds,
yeah.
and it's a common story. And there's no one way to get out of it either. I'm sure you're familiar with this, but maybe have you read books on it, and have you gotten advice
On
outside of
like
yourself?
addiction and whatnot,
Well, just I mean,
or
how
about
to make
turning
amends
your
with
life around, or
yeah, how to not be just in a tailspin based off what.
I mean, I was lucky the stars were aligned, in several events in my life, because there's truth to the way addiction works, and it's like you hit rock bottom. It's like
Mhm.
some addicts learn from other people, and others have to learn the hard way, and a bunch of bad shit has to happen before they're like, they just kind of do the math. It's like, if I keep using, it's just gonna suck more than how much it sucks to not use.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
something I'm very lucky to have avoided drug addiction and alcoholism or anything like that. And
Yeah, it's a
I attribute
fucking
it.
disaster.
I
Yeah.
was a straight edge motherfucker back in the day, and my father
Really? Were
told,
you into
yeah,
hardcore?
what is
Or
that?
oh, never. Wait, how old are you?
45, I just turned.
I really.
Yeah,
Oh wow. Well, I guess I only see the kangaroos, so
yeah, that's true.
I didn't know that.
Um, yeah, I was talking to my boy Phil, who was deep into heroin and was supposed to die a couple times, and he got out of it. But there's no guarantee with this stuff. You could.
Yeah, what's on the street now. Like I'm really lucky I didn't die. I went on this medicine called Suboxone that like once you're on it for a long enough time, and I've been on it for 7 years. It you can't get high. Like you can't get high and
Mhm.
shit. Like it's. I don't think I would have gone on it if I knew that, but I mean, it forced me to to not
It's
do that drug.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about drugs is people get on it and then they have these physical problems that are just real
Yeah,
in their biology at this point. But
yeah,
they also it's usually underneath that is psychological problems and damage and trauma, and it's so difficult to separate the two and to even take a look at the original wounds.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's a there's and the treatment options that are available. It's a fucking disaster. Like
mhm.
it's all just a shot in the dark. Like the modern state of like treatment centers. You go in. I've been a detox a couple times. You go in and you literally, you're like on a bed. They like tranquilize you, and then you like paint rocks for a week and like do AA meetings. That's it. That's
Are
it. And
you?
then they're like, oh, $40,000, and I'm like, dude,
They want money
yeah.
like that?
There's if you go to like a real rehab, I've only been into like state funded detox where I didn't have to
Okay.
pay, but for long term rehab, which is what's necessary to actually, help someone's brain go back to like normal. That's oh my god, it's tens of thousands of dollars a month. It's a lot.
So help me understand in terms of the past 10 years, say, of your life, how big of a role has drug addiction played for you? Has that been the central hurdle for you?
It's definitely played a big role. Yeah, sure.
And it's the reason why, because you said like your position in life now is not what it could have been if you were on a different track earlier on.
Yeah, I
Are
think that's
you?
why I'm also more inclined to believe in people's capacity to change based on opportunities. So, like, for example, with drugs, I
Mhm,
used to smoke crack. So, obviously, if I had been caught with that, I could have been
mhm.
put in jail. I don't think I would have going to be incarcerated. I don't think that would have helped me turn my life around. You know,
Exactly. Yeah, for
it
sure.
would give me a record. It would. So that's why I think that, you know, I yeah, I tend to lean against mass incarceration, and that's why with Alice Marie Johnson, I'm like 30 years is fucking enough, you know,
Hmm.
um,
Have
and in
Have you?
general, like with drug charges, I think we need a better system, and I do think it disproportionately affects the Black community. Yep, I
Yeah,
do.
and you could say stuff like that, but there's an implication when you say that it's designed to hurt the Black community more, but it's not. It's just the
Um,
laws are the laws, and
yeah,
they tend to fall into this problem more than others.
I
Uh,
think they perhaps get caught more or more likely, to be searched for drugs. I think when people see me, they might not be like, "Oh, she's buying crack right now." It's not
mhm.
like their first thought when they look at me.
I think it's different
So
drug by drug. So I don't think blacks lead the pack when it comes to meth or heroin
no,
stuff like
yeah,
that. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
there's a bunch of whites who are zombied out of their minds, just
yeah,
destroying their lives. But it is a problem, and I've heard that Portugal has a good system in place where they invest
yeah,
way more
yeah.
money in rehab. And I think if a Democrat gets in, we're on the verge of legalizing pot, which is a start,
Oh yeah,
and
that's huge.
just changing the philosophy. I think, like you're
Yeah,
saying, because what we're doing doesn't really benefit anyone, including the drug addict,
yeah.
and
No, it's a fucking disaster. Like it's such a oh
we're
my god, it's
wasting
such
money.
an
We're just
stuck up. Huge
yeah,
waste of money, and just on incarceration in general, it's a lot of times it's like less money to actually put someone in, to like get treatment instead of like locking them up for a way longer time. But
mhm.
yeah,
So let me ask you a question that comes to mind, which is being new to the internet. Like you just had your first stream earlier today. You said you'd been on a couple, but you did your
I've
first.
already like called in my first stream. I went on this guy Flamenco stream,
Uh-huh.
just because he's like someone who's more on the right, and I left a comment on one of his videos, and he was like, would you like to come on? So that was like my first one. And then today, someone else had invited me to do something. And then I spent like 3 hours trying to figure out how to stream on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, it's difficult, but I find it interesting. You're almost like a person that it was in a lost tribe in the Amazon, and you've just discovered the internet, and you are refreshingly not anonymous. Well, you are anonymous, but you are revealing things about yourself in a very honest fashion that you don't see a lot online. Most people are very cryptic. They keep things close to the chest.
Oh,
What
yeah.
is what is it about you that you feel like an open book where you're willing to reveal deeply personal things about your life to strangers?
Yeah, I know. It's probably like a really bad idea. I'm doing this like fun combo of like
Hmm.
revealing like personal details that can easily be used against me, and then also like going up against like the most controversial people on the internet.
Oh,
But
really?
well, I mean, with like Stefan Molyneux, and yeah, you're a little controversial.
No,
Yeah.
but I'm not. Only in your mind or world would I be controversial. So I'm not, and none of my positions are even daring at all. It's just I believe in facts. Like I'm a
But
college graduate.
you don't think you're controversial,
No, not at all.
like not to like. I mean, I'm coming from the left.
I'm unique. I would say I'm different. Well, but I'm on the left too. You know what shit?
I know. I learned that. I would not have guessed that watching your videos, but I
Okay.
did learn that because I talked to your moderator for like a while, and he was really nice.
Yeah.
So he explained a couple things, from my perspective.
Right. So you need to know a few things about me because I am different than most, and my audience is 50% on the right and 50% on the left. So it's a very strange mix of people. I'm
Yeah.
not into political tribalism, but people know I can't stand Trump. I think he's, the spawn of Satan. He's, he could drop dead for, I just hate the dude. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little bit tiresome. It's been 4 years now, and it gets a little repetitive. Just there's more things in the world than Trump. I'm not going to let him
Yeah.
dominate my mind.
It is. It's like the Trumpness talk everywhere. It is like I just don't remember what life was like before this. You know.
Yeah, and it's entertaining on
What
some
was
level,
news before this? What was news before this? Because it's just constant. Like,
but don't you find that it's frustrating when you can't control anything? So I have no ability to control what happens in these elections. And so I'm just watching this huge machine operate, and it's my guy was Andrew Yang. I was a Yang guy,
yeah, yeah.
and he's out, and so I'm just like, whatever. I'll just focus on other stuff. Watch some Netflix or do whatever. Do you have Netflix?
Yeah, yeah. I do Netflix. Wow, you
And
watching anything good?
I'm watching Narcos Mexico, and I'm loving it.
Did you see When They See Us? Did you watch
Yeah,
that?
I've done a whole series on that film, and
I didn't get to watching those yet, but that was like
yeah.
that was the tipping point for me to drop the R bomb on you.
Oh
Okay.
God. And was it a hard C?
Yeah, yeah, it was.
It was a hard C. Okay, so let's go into this. This is almost like sport for me, but okay. Central
All
Park
right.
5. So
Yeah.
when I first heard about it,
Hmm.
I didn't hear about it at the time in the 80s. I guess it was in 89 because I was in LA and it was in New York, and it was like, who cares? When I first heard about it, I heard it the way you heard it, which is, oh, there were 5 guys and they were innocent, they were framed, and it turns out they didn't do it, and it was a whole debacle. And so I assumed that that was true.
Hmm.
But then, me being the stubborn mule that I am, I actually researched it for myself, and I wanted to confirm and think independently about it, not take marching orders from Vosh or Destiny or
I
whoever else.
would just like you to know that I spend a lot of time on fucking BitChute listening to like all
Hmm.
these fucking alt-right people. Like it's a big past
Yeah,
it's like a morbid pastime of mine that I actually
I
feel
know, but
guilty about. So I
you're
know,
hate watching that. You
well,
just
but
like
it's
you watch my stuff.
also it's not entirely hate watching, it's more of like watching, because I do like to be challenged to reevaluate my positions, make sure I can
Hmm.
articulate them. And also, I mean, so
Okay.
I do watch. I've seen people say like stuff with Trayvon Martin, like
Uh-huh.
talking about a whole different side of that case, and
Yeah. Did you hear
you
that
know,
movie that came out? That some guy did a documentary about it.
I do you ever watch like Glenn?
Lowry. I
Yeah,
love the guy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
those two guys are amazing. John
I
McWhorter and
watched.
Glenn Lowry.
Yeah, I watched. So I watched their channel a lot, and I saw
Hmm.
that they were talking about the Trayvon case, and it's like, I do feel like they go after like radioactive stuff like that with like pretty
Yeah,
tactfully.
reparations. Oh, they're amazing. Those guys are geniuses. I want to do a video promoting them. I watch them. I'm inspired by them. I think they're really on point. I disagree. I mean, I think the one
Yeah.
guy's a bit more conservative than I am, but and the interesting thing is, Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter would take no issue with anything I say on race. They would probably just be like, "Yeah, we agree. This
I
is
don't think they're
guys."
down with the genetic part though. I from what I can gather, they seem to think it's more of like the cultural, like the black community
Uh,
just needs to like pick themselves up by the bootstraps kind of perspective.
well,
That's what
what
I'm.
what is it? What isn't the genetic thing?
Oh, come on. The
What?
like genetic, like, oh, black people are more genetically predisposed to being criminals because of their high testosterone and their lower IQ and the
Well, look,
weird.
I'm actually just delighted and pleased that we're even at that level of the conversation, because a lot of people will be resistant to the fact that they do commit more crimes. So you
Yeah.
have to get over that speed bump, and that takes forever. So if you want to talk about why they do it, and
Hmm.
I've already given you my caveat by saying they do it because they do have agency, and they do have maybe not pure free will, but they are independent organisms acting on their own behalf. So they do it more. It's not like a collective thing. They're not the Borg, but if you do count up the numbers, there is a pattern there.
No,
And
definitely.
like, before we start accusing people of why they do it, I mean, would you agree that men commit more crimes than women, violent crimes?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And would you attribute that in large measure to testosterone and the aggressivity, is that a word, associated with testosterone?
Um, I mean, I'm a regressive leftist, so of course I'm
Yes.
gonna think that a lot of it's sociologically influenced and
What?
how men are
Wait a
like.
minute. You think that men are more aggressive and violent because they were taught
No,
to do
I'm
that?
saying that's part of it, but yes, of course, like I do believe in like there are sexual dimorphic differences between the sexes, and
Yeah.
one of those is men, are a little bigger, they have more testosterone, they're a little more aggressive.
Kind of a lot more. Some of them are a lot more. I mean, and it starts early. You can see this with 3-year-olds. They get aggro, and it's pretty sketchy, and men have to deal with it. Like, men are the victims of rape. Men are the
Yeah.
victims of violent crime. Men kill men more than men kill women. So we deal with men like you guys deal with men, and men
Yeah.
we are the common enemy for everyone. Sorry guys, but it's true. And to not acknowledge that testosterone is a huge factor in that. I mean, any scientist would break that down and explain that to you. Um, I think it's same with older people. So the older you get, the less testosterone you have.
Hmm.
And I know that older people are wiser and a little bit more chill and less hot-headed, but I think it's also their testosterone count that plays a
Yeah.
part in that. And so if you acknowledge that, the difference between men and women and why, in terms of violent crime, if it was to be determined that bleeps have more testosterone on average, of a significant amount,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be a very reasonable part of this equation as to why they tend to be more violent?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it was confirmed, like blacks genetically, I mean, on average, I know we're always
Yeah,
talking about averages, but
exactly.
like to the point where it's gonna affect the crime levels this much because it is extremely disproportionate. I mean, I'm not gonna say the my thing with it is it's not that I think it's impossible that there is genetic influence. I think that it's something that we don't have the ability to say exactly how much it is.
Yeah, but
I would say that most of it.
we can take educated guesses. I mean, science is all about educated guesses.
Yeah.
So I don't think just because we can't tell you exactly the percentage of nature versus nurture, I think we're in a ballpark and we're pretty close to understanding.
What would you guess?
Oh, I mean, 70-30.
Like
Um,
70 genetic and 30
yes, I would say you're looking at that. And it could be outliers with that too. Like if you grow up in a super violent thug culture,
yeah.
then if everyone is a gangster, basically your dad's a fucking gangster, and you get taught how to shoot guns as a kid, then
Yeah.
it might be 70-30 the other way. Um, there's not one number that explains every situation. But this is why I say what I think is not controversial, because you and I agree that men are more violent because of testosterone in large measure.
Well, multitude of factors, but yes, I agree. Testosterone is one of them.
Exactly. And so then, what is the debate on? Because if a scientist says that blacks have more testosterone on average, which they do, then the premise is rock solid. So what is
Mhm.
wrong with the conclusion? I don't. But then the other factor is intelligence, because we do know that the lower IQ you have, the stronger the likelihood that you will be a criminal, that you will commit crime. We
Yeah.
have a long history of stupid ass people making terrible decisions, and I mean, part of it's like they don't have the intellectual fortitude to get a job and to figure out how to, I don't know, game the system to their advantage. So they just take the easy way out. Also, delayed gratification is another interesting field of study, and there's major differences between people where they look
Like
for
based
the.
on race, because the thing is, I'm more comfortable if you want to talk about like there's like genetic clusters on geographic regions. I think when you try to break it down to races, which is like a super duper like hypercharged radioactive subject that's ill defined and
Well, yeah, but this is what
complicated.
you're explaining why these conversations go nowhere, because people freak. But we could just as easily have this conversation about whites, just strictly whites, because we have white criminals, we have white stupid people, we have white people with more testosterone than others whites.
Hmm.
So we have young whites with more testosterone who commit more crimes. So we could just look at it there and figure out what we think is true, and then just apply it to the other races. So I think you've kind of stumbled onto the main problem, which is this major elephant in the room and this awkwardness that people have, and some call it white guilt. And this is something I do not possess.
Do you think I have white guilt?
Oh, you are, I mean, just
You
drenched in
think
white guilt.
it's just
But
oozing out of me, all the
I,
white guilt?
I think it's so deeply embedded in you that you don't even know how it's like in your fibers.
I mean, I
Like,
actually used to be like a pretty openly racist person.
oh, really? That's interesting. Towards which
Yeah.
race?
Blacks, yeah.
Really? So,
Yeah,
but
I went through
doesn't that feed into your guilt, your current guilt?
I mean maybe. I
You're
I
trying to make
like
amends.
yeah, when I was younger, I don't know if you're familiar with like skinhead oi. Like there's like a segment of like the punk community that's
Hmm.
more extreme right wing. There's a lot of like Nazi bands.
Oh yeah.
And at the time I was going to majority black school. I was being bullied a lot.
Oh
So for
really?
me, I understand how people can come to those conclusions, you know. And for me, in my younger mindset, obviously intuitively, I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't like the bleeps, like, you
Right.
know,
Well,
like,
this is like the
but
story of do you know Howard Stern, the radio host?
yeah.
He went to a black school. He got bullied, and yeah, that's going to shape your opinion about at least those bleeps. And there's a huge trend of bullies in schools and white girls getting picked on. You should go check out the book "White Girl Bleeds a Lot."
Oh, I know. Is that the Colin Flaherty guy?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going
Yeah.
to
I
interview that
told
guy.
you I'm all up in this
Yeah,
shit.
you are. So, how and why did you go from having this animus towards black people at large for due to your personal experience to then switching and feeling that you owe them a favor or that you have to
I don't I
self-flagellate?
No, I don't. I That's not how I feel about the situation. It's more so of just like on a factual basis, I really do think that it's like the school I went to, I, you know, at the time lived in a very impoverished city. You
Mhm.
know, these kids,
Cleveland.
the way I look at it is they never had a chance, you know? Like it was such a
Mhm.
the school was a fucking disaster. Like it was chaos. Like the
Mhm.
teachers would be in tears by the end of the class. It was like, you
I
know,
know
and
it.
yeah, so it was
Yeah.
like, but so at the time, you know, I took that at face value of like, yeah, you know, I was fucking racist. But as I got older, read more, you know, you could, you know, one might say, oh, I got indoctrinated, but
Okay. Let me.
the more I looked into it, the more I was compelled, and the more you look at the scientific data,
Mhm.
I feel like it tends to lean more towards my viewpoint. You know, that's the thing. And it's like, you could say like there's a cover up, but people say that about climate change. They say that about vaccines. And I
Well.
would say it's plausible that like people wouldn't want to talk about it. That's plausible to me. But
Mhm.
so far as a mass cover up to the extent where like, I don't know, I'm just not.
Well, I'm very interested in how you're defining racism in that context because, look, a general overview, everyone has a different definition, but to have a negative feeling towards a race of people or to judge them by their skin and to frown upon them, to have a dark outlook on them as a people,
Mhm.
that and to do that in an unjustified way. But what you are saying is that you were beaten up and bullied and mistreated by many blacks. So it's not racist for you to think negatively about those people in particular, is it?
Well, not in like them in particular, but then I projected that
Okay,
onto an enormous population, and you know, and I've had many
right.
positive experiences. I live in a city that's very diverse and like very diverse neighborhoods, and I very rarely have issues.
But
So for
isn't
me, like as I had more life experience and learned
mhm.
more, you know, just looking at things through historical context of how, you know, and blacks have come a long way. And I feel like 100 years ago, people would have said like that blacks genetically can't fucking read, or they are genetically what? It's true. People have
Yes,
always
but what are you worried about
used
100 years ago?
what?
Why are we
Well,
worried
what I'm
about
saying is that there's always people who think there's science to back up the status quo, and then there's always people who think that underprivileged groups can do better and that they're being underestimated, or
well,
being poorly maligned. Like when you say like someone as a group like has a lower IQ, to me that I just don't see how you can believe that without also believing that that group is inferior in some way.
yeah, but that this is the nature of how awkward the conversation is.
Yeah.
Because if you have differences in numbers, then if you want to frame it as one being inferior or superior, it's kind of it's a caustic way to go about it. It's antagonistic. It's kind of messed up. It's not even necessary. But you're talking about one group of people is inferior when it comes to numbers. That's the whites. But we are not bitching about it. We are not asking the Asians to give us money or to, oh, you fucking Asians, you and your high intellects. We don't care because we
Well,
think of ourselves as individuals. We're not in this group think mentality.
yeah, because we also were doing fine. You know, we don't.
No, we're not. Like I said, half of the people in prison, or like it's like
Well, I wouldn't
40%.
say like we're doing like fine in the broader
Th-
scheme of things. I do think there's like huge systemic
yes.
issues, but in
So
regards to like the black community, I do think
okay, but wait, why?
I
Why
just
are
think
you?
it's not. I don't think the white Asian and the black white thing is like as comparable.
Okay, first of all, whites lead the league in suicide, and in drug use, we're a mess. And look, we talk about the black single parent situation and how it's like 74% now. It's growing. The
Yeah.
whites is like 34, 35%. Now, granted, not all these situations are as bad. So a
Yeah,
single
more
parent.
people, it's like, yeah, people are just not really getting married that much anymore.
Yeah, because marriage is dying off, religion is dying off. So there's other trends to go into with that. But whites, we have all sorts of problems. But Coleman Hughes brought this up. I don't know if you listened to Coleman.
I like Coleman Hughes.
Yeah, very bright guy. He just had a really good conversation with Glenn Lowry. And in that
Yeah,
conversation,
I watched that.
okay, well, he talked about a great point, which is why are we always comparing blacks to whites?
Yeah.
Why aren't we comparing blacks to prior blacks? I mean, the marriage rate in 1910 with blacks was like 90%. And if you have two parents and they're demanding that their children be raised and they're positive influences on their kids, obviously those kids are going to turn out better. So you could, all that genetic stuff, that might still exist. And it is what it is, but you can still have successful black people. I mean, look at what the Nigerians do in America. These are doctors and lawyers. Some of the people from the Bahamas do exceedingly well, way better than some of our inner city guys. So you're talking about you want them to do better, and sure, I want everyone to do better, but I think part of the process of being better is being honest about the people that are fucking up and violating people.
Mhm.
People are dying out there. People are getting raped. I mean,
Yeah.
these numbers are gruesome. Like, you're not going to be doing a video on baby rape in South Africa anytime soon because it's awkward and it's uncomfortable. But it's happening.
I mean, I don't really know enough about the South Africa
Okay, well,
situation to get into that. I know like Lauren Southern's.
Yeah.
I think I watched her little like white farmer
So,
thing.
were you resistant to that documentary because it was Lauren Southern, or do you actually understand?
I mean, honestly, of course, yeah. Like I'm not like I'll watch anything.
Mhm.
Try to be as open as possible, but I'm a biased person, of course, and
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
I
a
like
Lauren
that.
Southern fan.
I like that about you. I think that you have a curious mind, and I think you are engaged in these thoughts and on self-improvement, which is, I'm talking about in an authentic way. That's not just a bullshit line. I think you actually are curious to learn things,
Yeah.
and I don't know everything, and I'm always interested in learning stuff. Like, I just learned about what's this case, Kevin Cooper. The latest thing that Kim Kardashian's sticking her fat butt
Oh
in.
yeah. So what is up with that? Like
Well,
fat butting.
she Kim is just, I don't know how much time she spends on this. Like, this woman is incredibly busy. I doubt that she does independent research. I
Do you want
bet
to
she
know
does.
my theory though with Kim? And I swear on my fucking life, I'm not like, I don't look up to the Kardashians. I don't want to fucking be a Kardashian. I
Do you
swear
own their
on
makeup?
my life, I don't watch the show. I just think that my theory on why she changed, I do think her family, they're disgustingly wealthy. They're very like gross. I'm very repulsed by a lot of their lifestyle. But I do think, I feel like Kim Kardashian like changed when she was robbed and when she had children. So that's why there's part of me that feels a little defensive of like, if someone wants to change, and try to do some good, I think that should be encouraged. I think more
Okay,
if she's
but
in a huge position of power, even though she shouldn't, like I agree, she should. That's just the way our society is, that we
yes.
glorify a certain type of person for whatever reason,
Well, obviously, I agree with the sentiment. Someone should do something good, but what I'm suggesting is that what she's doing is the exact
Yeah.
opposite of good.
Yeah.
What for her to do something good would be for her to get back to her makeup and her fashion and stick her nose out of these murder cases where she is literally getting mass murderers trying to set them free, and rapists. This is a problem in
So
my
you
mind.
think your perception is that she believes these people are guilty of the crimes as they're described, and she wants to get them out anyway as like a power move?
I think she's just so stupid and gullible that she believes that these
So
people are innocent.
okay,
And
so
I'm,
you could at least say, yes, I don't know why, but I do think her intent, I don't see her as like, because it doesn't seem plausible to me that someone would just want to free like rapists and killers,
I
just
know.
for the heck of it,
Well, it's crazy, and that's why it's appalling. That's why I'm inspired to comment on it.
Mhm.
But I mean, look, I just doubt that she has the wherewithal to actually ascertain the truth of these cases. And I think that she's doing this, like you say, she's projecting this idea that she is a do-gooder. She is this positive force in the world, and she's an activist, and she's helping people, and she's like this icon of good. She's like Mother Teresa.
You're so cynical though. I don't know.
Yes, yes. But okay, so just grant me one thing. If she is getting actual murderers set free.
Of course, that would be bad. Of
That would be a
course,
morally
of course, that
egregious
would
thing,
be. Yeah.
inexcusably horrible.
Unless they were like, oh, so here's my other thing is I do believe in restorative justice and not, just
What does that mean?
retribution and punishment. It's more of I do think that people should have second chances and, anyone like that's like
Okay,
part of
wait a
my
minute.
like moral
Let me
viewpoint.
let me get a little understanding of what that actually means, because sometimes it's like you're talking about pot crime, and then other times you're kind of implying
No,
that.
I'm even talking about like murder. Like if you look at like
Okay,
a lot of European countries, like their sentences tap out at like 24 years because they view it to
yeah,
be inhumane to do it longer, even if the person,
I know.
did something horrible. Like
Well,
absolutely, like I have a relative who was murdered. It's horrible. Like
mhm.
it's yeah, it's
You know that guy
so I
Anders
understand that.
Breivik?
Who is it?
Anders Breivik, the guy from Norway who killed like 70 kids.
Oh, oh, the Andrew.
Yeah, the Nazi
Oh,
dude. He went
was he
in.
one of the? He was a white nationalist.
Yeah, basically an ethno sort of
I think I
European.
know about him because the Christchurch shooter might have mentioned him in his
Yeah,
manifesto.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah,
So that guy is doing like 20 something years, but I
yeah,
think there's a way that he's never going to get out, because it's. I mean, look, these laws are made not with the intent of judging a dude killing 75 people. Like,
yeah.
it's just not set up for that. But in your estimation, if I murder someone, how many years in jail should I do?
How many years in jail? Well, I think it would develop like it depended on is it first degree, second degree,
Okay, so
premeditated, like was it violent, like
you
all
do
those things. I do
you draw
think
a distinction with like premeditated and
for sure.
accidental manslaughter.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what about premeditated? Do you think those guys deserve second chances?
I it's for me it's entire like it's really depends on the situation. Have you ever seen that show I'm a Killer, the Netflix
No.
Oh, it's really interesting because it shows
Mhm.
like they interview killers who give their side of the story, and sometimes the people are obviously just like trying to look good for their probation, or not probation but whatever, their
Mm.
appeal court thing. But some of them I think are genuine. They talk about their lives and things that led up to the crime and how they are different, and they do it in a believable way.
Okay,
So
so this is what I call, and it's a very endearing quality that you have, and many people like you have, women especially young women. But it's empathy. You have a sense of empathy, but you're right now empathizing with a murderer. I would call this toxic empathy. I think this is a
you think
misfiring
so?
of a nice impulse that you have. But like, for example, you're not talking about the victims of these people. They're completely out of sight, out of mind.
No, no, I totally like, and a lot of times it's on the show. If you watch it, it's interesting because they show the victims' families and their side, and
Hmm.
there are a lot of times where victims' family, do like give forgiveness to the person and have even like appealed and rallied for them to be released
Yeah,
from
but
jail.
that's a lot of Christian insanity.
Yeah,
And
true. Yeah, I can't argue with
I mean,
that. It actually, you have to watch. There's one. This girl is like a traveler punk girl who like suffocated her boyfriend, and she's totally full of shit. But the boyfriend, his parents are fucking lunatics, who it seems like they didn't care about the son's death, and they're using this to like promote their church. So they like are all like buddy with this girl,
hmm.
like talk to her, they sing with her, they pray with her, like it's so disgustingly bizarre. It is, yeah.
Well, remember Dylan Roof? He had a court hearing or whatever, and the family members of the victims of Dylan Roof came out and forgived him, one after the other. They were all Christian.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember
And it
that.
was just so weird and so empty and so just.
Yeah, I agree.
I understand why they do it, but it's a
People are
fucked up
like, "Oh,
production.
wow, that's so big of it." And they're like, "Oh, well, I've got Jesus in my heart." And I'm looking at this. I'm also an atheist, so for me, I'm just like, uh, you have this made up thing. It's a completely fabricated reality in your head, and you have this.
But
It's
there's
sad.
a there's a power to it. Because anger is a toxic force for yourself.
Well,
Sitting
I
and
wish I
existing
could
with
be
anger,
religious for that purpose, so that I could,
just
have
forgive
access to
everybody.
that, like,
Yeah.
that delusion. I,
Because, for
yeah.
example, even in our scenario, like I've met you I've known you for a day, and I get a link. Some guy's like, "Hey, there's this girl talking shit about you." I'm like,
I know
"Oh, okay,
Plus did that. He was like one of my fans, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going straight to
right." But it's
stole
like,
my spot."
I listen to you, and I'm charmed by you. I don't see you as vicious or malevolent in any way, and it's like harmless. But I could have taken offense. I could have been like, "Oh, call me a racist. Oh my God, wow, I'm super angry. I'm gonna."
Your video was not the most flattering to me.
Yeah, that you saw only the first 5 minutes and then you bailed out.
Oh, but come on. You know,
Well, yes,
I'll try to watch the rest of the part of
you're
it.
insulting me. You're going. You're a psychopath. You're a fucking idiot. You have a small
No,
brain.
I'm saying
What am I supposed to do?
that I'm sorry, but that was like my honest
I
perception.
know.
If you look at a woman reuniting with her family and you're like, this big fat bleep, like, and you know, she's guilty in jail.
What
Yeah,
does it have
I'm
to do with
sorry,
anything?
Devin.
I'm happy
Seems
for
a
her
little
family.
fucking psychopathic to me.
What is wrong? Wait a minute.
Good
So I'm
point.
supposed to sit there and comment? I'm going to buy into the propaganda of, oh, look at this reunion of this criminal and her family. That's not the point. That's
But
not the
see, the
point.
point is
Like,
you can't see past. It's like she did 30 years in jail. You know,
no, no, no. You're strawmanning me because I would have had the exact same opinion, like without. It doesn't matter the race of the person or her weight. It doesn't matter. It's the
well,
point.
you listen. You said it. You said the big fat black woman.
Yes, but I make fun of white people all the time. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I have no problem, going across the board. But let's get to the Central Park Five because you brought those guys up, and I
That was
just
that pushed me over that because I've only ever like I truly believe that it like false confessions happen
okay.
and
But wait a minute, that's a logical fallacy. You said
no,
it
it's
again.
not because it
You
does
go.
happen factually. It's
You
happened many
said
times.
you said Kim Kardashian is doing something good, and I go, what? Why do you think that? And you go, well, there are some innocent people in jail, and therefore I think the ones Kim have selected are innocent people. It doesn't
No. I
connect.
that if I portray it
It's
that way,
not.
that's not my feeling on it. It's
But
not that they're
you
all
just
like
did it again.
perfectly.
You just
Well,
did it
no,
with the false confessions.
we're talking about something else because the Central Park Five that's very different than Kim Kardashian's cases because I believe Kim Kardashian, at least, I mean, I'm only really familiar with the Alice Marie one, and yeah,
Okay.
she's fucking guilty, you know. So
Okay.
I feel confident in saying that, she wasn't a minor drug person. It was a really serious drug thing, you know.
Okay, but let me just get this point across to you. And I don't think you've registered it. You said false confessions exist. Therefore, there was a.
No, not therefore they're
It was
innocent,
therefore.
but
You
no,
juxtapose the two things. You go, the Central Park Five are innocent because it is
no.
theoretically possible for false
Nope,
confessions to exist.
nope, no.
How is that not what you said?
I'm
Rewind.
triggered. I'm triggered. Dude,
Uh,
okay, listen. No, I
like,
don't.
do you
I
have
don't think
Christmas
just
lights
because
and
false
Valentine's Day
confession.
shit?
I don't think that just like anyone who does a false confession, like, oh, they're innocent because they falsely confessed. No, I don't. That's not
Okay.
my perspective. It's based on like a multitude of other factors in the case. Like, if you look, the guy who fucking did it said he did it alone. It was his fucking jizz on her,
Okay. Wait.
and the
Wait. Wait.
kids
Wait.
are like fucking
You're getting out of
teenagers.
control. So what if they're teenagers? Teenagers kill people all the time and rape
But
people.
I'm just saying that, like, and I don't
But what
want
is
to.
that point? What is the
The
point of
point
they are
is that
teenagers?
they're way, just statistically, way more likely to not understand the gravity of a situation and say
So
false
what?
confession just to get out.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
First of all, it was a false confession. All of them were, in a sense, because they were lying. They were lying about their personal involvement, but they were throwing their friends under the bus. I mean, I did an in-depth study on this. So let me just take a step back, and before we argue one point or
So you
another,
think, what do you think all those kids, they were just like totally guilty and this is just some, so why
absolutely
do you
guilty.
think they got a $40 million settlement from the city?
Because Mayor de Blasio is a regressive bitch who wanted to get political capital by doing a noble gesture, alleviating his white guilt. The guy's a super far leftist. There's a reason why Bloomberg and people before did not give up the money. There's a reason why the detectives on the case think they're all guilty. The cops, the black cop who arrested them, is like, these motherfuckers are guilty. They shouldn't have gotten a dime.
Well, but they are all, they have their own reasons to be invested in, because it would take a lot for them to be like, oh yeah, we fucked up, and these kids spent like years in jail.
No,
So
that's a long shot. That's no,
uh,
these people. So you're just basically saying they have no principles whatsoever, and they just no morality. They're just
no. I mean,
totally corrupt.
I'm saying that it's people even on a subconscious level can believe things because there's going to be a external, like you say, like Mayor de Blasio or whoever, like they have white guilt, but like on the same, we don't know the driving forces between or like why the officers from then are still saying that they're guilty, because they could be manipulated by guilt too, of like
What
not
guilt?
being like the guilt of falsely imprisoning them
They
for
didn't falsely. No, but there's actual reasons. It's not just a gut feeling. It's their testimony, their
it was
confessions, the evidence.
entirely on. So, is there any other evidence? Was there any physical evidence? Any
Tons. Yes. Now let me just ask you:
against them?
Have you seen When They See Us? Is that what we're dealing with here?
I no, that's not what we're doing.
Wait, have you seen that movie?
I've watched. Isn't it? It's a series, right?
Yeah, it's a series.
I watched the first episode.
One
And I
episode
did.
of one.
I've watched other documentaries on it. You know,
Okay, you saw the Ken Burns documentary on it.
the Ken Burns. Yeah.
That was a
probably
famous
that.
movie.
That's like the big one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
And the
I
thing is,
I
I've
don't
only
want to
ever
sound.
heard like the reason that made me think you're racist, okay, is because
How dare you
I
zoom in?
only, and not to guilt you by association or like, because racists say this, that means you're racist. But yeah, my pattern finding brain is gonna notice that I've only ever heard white nationalists say that they're guilty.
What? Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous standard. Okay, I mean, there's right and
that's
there's
not
wrong
the
on an
only
issue.
standard, but there's, of course, when I'm watching your videos and it's bleep this, bleep that, and yeah, a multitude of factors did lead.
Wait a minute. Hold on. This is you're giving me too much juicy stuff. Bleep this, bleep that. So if I talk about black people, that's a red flag for you that I'm a racist. Just talking about them.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Look at
What do
your
you mean?
video.
Yes, this is my specialty, and do you know why I am
It's your
needed?
specialty. So
Yes,
can you
this is a
understand
hole
why?
in the market. So
There's
look,
a hole in the market.
look. Let me give you a little knowledge about me and race. I talk about race in private about never. Like, ask my girlfriend. I never talk about race. In public, I do because I am needed. Because we get bullshitters like you, no offense, who are
But
making excuses and letting murderers off, letting rapists off. You're against rape, I assume.
you're misconstruing me. You're strawmanning me.
Wait, let me get back to this case and just let's acknowledge something which is awkward, and I need to get this out there. This conversation is like me talking to a neuroscientist about brain chemistry. I don't know anything about it, and I assume that the scientist who I'm talking to, is way more informed about the brain than me. So I wouldn't even go into that conversation thinking, well, he's going to say something about the brain, and then I'll come back with my feelings about brains, and then we'll just go back and forth. Like, I have studied the Central Park Five for months on end. I know every detail. I've read everything. I've seen all of the video evidence.
So you're the neuroscientist on the Central
Yes,
Park 5.
you are unclear. Yes, you are the ignorant peasant when it comes to this. Okay, I mean, do you even understand that you're in the presence of greatness on this issue? Like, I know everything about this, so I'm not just telling you what I think. Like, hey, there were 5 blacks. Oh, well, that's all I need to know. They were probably guilty. It's ridiculous. There's eyewitness testimony.
Dude, when I watched your video, like, 'cause for a moment after I talked to Alf or whoever, like, I was like, yeah, maybe I'm reading this wrong. I click on your video, and it's literally, you're like, this guy, look at him, look at the shape of his skull. You can like make it was like out of a fairy tale book about what racism sounds like. Do you understand how it seems like that?
Can you please time out? Please zip up your mouth for a second and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Me talking about the skull shape of Rodney Reed was an obvious joke, 1,000% joke. Wait a minute. Now this is total bad faith. Go ask anyone in my audience. Ask my girlfriend, ask my father, ask anyone. Obviously, skull shape is totally insignificant. And I was saying it because I'm an entertainer and I'm joking completely, going way over the line, going, hey, Rodney Reed, look at the shape of his skull. That's all I'm going to say. That is a joke. Milady, you have been fooled.
Do you understand how it's hard to decipher a joke when you actually are someone who believes in race science and phrenology is like one of the biggest parts of race science?
Okay.
And lots of race realists today believe in that shit.
Well, okay,
they still believe in phrenology.
I believe in the brains. Brains can be different. But no, the skull shape, I don't know anything about it. Yes, it's debunked, it's fake, whatever. I was saying that to be a caricature and to cross the line. Literally, your reaction to that right now is the punchline to that joke. It's Poe's law trying to get you to be like, does he actually believe that or not? The other day
what's the purpose? I feel like, see, this is, I don't think you're all right or anything, but I feel
humor is purpose.
But it's
making light of a situation that people are too serious about. That's what the purpose is.
So the purpose, in other words, you just want to trigger the libs?
No, I was entertaining my audience. I'm not triggering the libs. Don't watch my shit. Super libs do not watch my stuff. I'm not triggering them. I don't even. I mean, no, I'm not a trigger like crusader. That's not my thing. But the other day I did a video, and in the middle of the video I said, "Oh, by the way, guys," I think I said, "God bless you for doing something," and I heard myself say the word "God bless you," and I realized I'm kind of a prominent atheist, and so I said, "Oh, by the way, guys, quick news update. I'm actually a God believer now. So the fact that my channel is Atheism is Unstoppable is kind of outdated. It's kind of antiquated. So just wanted to let you know." Now, I did not then say, "By the way, guys, I was joking, not trying to trigger you. I'm still an atheist." I didn't say that because that would have sucked the humor out of the whole bit. Now,
all right,
what's funny
I believe you. I believe you about the phrenology thing, that it was a joke.
Okay, thank you.
But can you at least just understand why I might come to some of the conclusions
that I came to? It's very cute. Okay, now let me get back to the semen. You think you're all semened up with this dude, Mateus Reyes. Okay, you said the DNA evidence exonerated them. Do you realize that the DNA evidence is strictly that they found semen in this woman, and that semen came back to this dude who was a convicted rapist in prison, Mateus Reyes?
Yeah.
It's just a match of one guy's semen.
Sorry, someone was just trying to call me. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Or hear me or whatever?
I got all the senses.
Oh, my back?
No, you're good. You're in. So, do you realize that more than one person can rape a woman, and you don't have to come for it to be rape? You agree with that?
Hello? Are you still there?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Hold on.
What's happened?
Are you there?
Oh.
Hello?
Wow, I was muted.
Yeah, I unmuted you. Something happened there.
Are you there?
Hello? Yeah. Can you hear me?
What the fuck just happened?
Hold on. Oh, we have a malfunction here, people.
Oh.
Hello? Hello? Should I drop her and then bring her back? All right, I'm going to try to drop her. Oh, God, this is riveting. It's too much. Hold on. All right. Something happened. I think it was on your end. She's very interesting because she's open and you could see all the puzzle pieces. You could just connect them. She's so close to understanding. I don't think it's beyond her to get. And I think she's reasonable. Hello. Heyo. Can you hear me? Hello. Check. I can hear you. What's going on? That's turned into boomer madness right now. It's not working. Legit not working. Well, my troubleshooting is... Hello? My troubleshooting is not good on this. Fuck. Hello.
Can kill.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Hello. Check. All right, guys.
Oh, you can hear me?
I don't want to put...
Dude, I don't fucking know. I'm gonna try to leave and come back. Hold on.
Yeah, do it, please. Wow. There's no indication that I have done anything wrong, and I'm putting it all on her. For the record, I don't know where I can take her. Like, where there's so much to unravel. I mean, she is pleasant, but it's just hello.
Oh, I can hear you.
You're back. Okay, good. I don't know what happened. I think it was on your end.
No,
I'm not sure.
My friend called me and it just fucked everything up. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yep. Okay, back to the point. We're talking about rape and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the one guy came. He was the last guy to have raped her, and he did the serious physical harm with the rock to the head. But you realize that does not absolve the other guys who raped her previously. Why do you assert that?
Was there DNA evidence of them?
No, but here's the point. They didn't come. DNA was not in existence in '89. The only thing we could do was test semen. They were
Yeah.
not
Oh,
going in
sure.
and getting all freaky with it. DNA came out years later.
Yeah, I know. I just mean like, well, I guess if they, yeah.
So basically, what you are saying when you say this very adamantly and you're very proud of this, you say, nope, the semen of Mateus Reyes was Mateus Reyes' semen, and there was only one guy who came in this gang rape, and therefore I'm only going to hold Mateus Reyes accountable for what all
Is
these other
that?
guys said they did. They all told you, they said, I saw this guy rape them.
But then the Mateus guy, he said that it was only him. Like,
Yes,
is that,
okay. That's the next point.
so is
So
that a false confession? That's true, or
he's lying. He's absolutely
oh, so
lying. They're
he's
all
lying,
lying.
but the other ones can't be. I don't
They're
know.
all lying. Hold on, Rebecca. Can I call you Rebecca?
Sure,
Okay.
whatever.
I just, it's very weird talking to a completely nameless entity. Um, yes, they're all lying. Why did you just say that you believed Mateus Reyes, who is a known liar? He
because
is a
the
sociopathic
DNA
rapist.
evidence links him to it, so that
Yes,
makes it a lot
no.
more compelling.
I agree that he raped her. I'm not saying he's lying about that. He
Yeah.
definitely raped her, but he was not the only one. I mean,
Why are you
what?
so sure of that, though? Is it's
Because,
purely based on the?
because okay, are you aware? Let me just ask you this. Are you aware that the guys in the park that day, and there was a bunch of them, like 30,
Yeah.
they were attacking joggers. It wasn't just Trisha Miley. They were attacking everyone who was jogging in the park.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
are you
I know
aware
it
of
was
that?
like a group of kids like acting crazy and doing bad stuff. I'm
No,
aware.
no. But we're getting specific. We know the kids. We've interviewed all the kids. So we're talking about 5 different joggers, most of them men, and
Uh-huh.
they were a couple of them were beaten up severely. One, cracked over the head with a pipe. They were throwing rocks at them. They were chasing them. One guy was such a good runner. He was like, "Hey guys, come get me, you little punks," and he outran them. They couldn't catch him. So
Uh-huh.
this was their MO. They're hiding in the bushes, waiting for joggers. Trisha Miley just happened to be on that path. We knew that was her running route, and she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they jumped her. But instead of just beating her up, which they definitely did, she lost 75% of her blood. What they did was they raped her, and it's 5 guys, and I don't even think all 5 did it. By the way, I don't think they're all equally guilty. So that's very nuanced and too advanced for a general conversation, but they're not all equally guilty. That's what I'll say.
So do you think any of the settlement was warranted, or you think that was
No,
purely
no. Are
really?
you aware that they were asking for $250 million each?
Well, when you do the lawsuit, you aim high, then
Oh my God! No, I think it might have been 50 million each actually, but it was an outrageous number, and they didn't deserve a single penny. Okay, will you acknowledge this? If these guys did assault people in the park, and by the way, they admitted to that. There's no dispute that they were assaulting and robbing people in the park. You don't even know that. You need to
Well,
watch my videos on this.
I'll watch.
Okay.
I'll
Do
watch your videos. But I've done some research into it, and it's just
you know what it
I
is? You have an Amy Winehouse vibe. Is that one of your role models? She
yeah,
was
like just like her in every
well,
way.
I mean, she had a bit of a rough ending, but she was on drugs and she had a similar look.
Yeah,
No?
we got a lot in common.
Did you like her music?
I didn't at the time, but then after the fact, I was like, oh, this is pretty good.
Okay. Will you acknowledge that these guys admit to beating people up in the park? I mean, that's just a fact. You don't have to believe that. It's either you know that or you don't know that. You're saying you don't
Well,
know that.
they
The face you're
from what
making,
I've seen in their interviews, they talk about how they were like
doing
there was
nothing.
like a large group of people,
Yes.
doing crazy shit,
Yes.
and that they were like kids and
But what are
infatuated
kids?
watching it. Yeah,
No, but what
fucking
are kids? They're
kids.
harming people. There's victims. Have you heard the victims' testimony? There are people
Um,
who are beaten up in
who
that park.
point a finger at the Central Park Five and are like, they
No, there's
specifically
there's
were
a
doing it.
there's like 7 or 8 different victims that night. They all reported crimes. They had injuries. A couple
Uh,
of them were really bad, really severe injuries. There was a homeless guy that was robbed and or beaten up. So this is their MO. One guy had a pipe. Yusuf had the pipe. This tall, skinny black kid. And I'm sorry, I said the word black. I'm sorry. It's problematic. Um, so, will you acknowledge that if they did do this, if they were involved in the gang rape, and Mateus Reyes. No one is denying Mateus Reyes raped her too.
yeah.
So it's not like an either or. They all raped her. Um, and by the way, I take that back. I don't think every one of the 5 guys raped her. And I will add to that, There's a sixth guy that you don't know about, Lopez, Steve Lopez. He raped her, in my opinion, and I'm going to be doing that in a future video. He got off scot-free. He pled to a lesser charge, but he was definitely there raping. Two of the Central Park Five guys said he raped her. They said he raped her. They go, Steve Lopez, he got on top of her, he raped her. But he didn't go down for it. He's not even part of the five. So it's a little bit more complicated than, oh, there's racism in the world, and I don't think they did it.
Listen, I've been talking to you for like an hour. Can you give me a little more credit than that?
I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm saying there's a general feeling that you come from a world in which...
Yeah. No, I know how these narratives play out in the media. I know. I can see that perspective totally.
I want you to tell me in your own words what kind of a horror show it would be if we were actively setting these rapists free. If they did it, assume that they did it, and now we're giving them multiple millions of dollars for having beaten up and raped people in a park. Almost
yeah, of course. Like if they like beat someone and raped them like halfway to fucking death, like, and were hurting people, like, yeah, of course that would be bad. Of course.
It is bad. This is what happened. This is what happened. That's why people are passionate about it, because it's a total abortion of justice. And people are leveraging white guilt in many nefarious ways.
It's just like when you talk about it, seems like a conspiratorial thinking, you know?
How?
It's like
they're guilty. They admitted to it. I mean, it's not even the five. So the five all put themselves at the scene. So each five guys were like, oh, I was there. There was a female jogger. Then what's his name? Kevin dropped her to the ground. Raymond held her arms. They went into great detail. And the videos are online. I could send you a link. You could see them tell you this.
Yeah.
So go look at the raw footage, the interviews. And you were saying shit in the video. You were like, they had these interviews and their parents weren't there. Their parents were all there. Their parents were there. They're shown in the videos.
No,
yes. Yes, you are being lied to.
No, initially when they were brought in, no, the parents were not there initially.
No.
What?
See, this is a lie that you have been told, and I'm telling you you're wrong.
But when they got picked up, their parents were just there.
They spontaneously just emerged from the walls. Yes. No, they called the parents because you're not allowed to interview a minor without the parent present.
Isn't that like part of the crux of the whole case?
No. Yes, this is what they'll say. They say shit. Go talk to people like Ava DuVernay, Oprah Winfrey, people who made that film, the Central Park Five.
You think they're just lying? Like, do you think they think they're guilty, and so it's just like they're lying?
Okay, this is a very small. Why lie? Because they want to get off. They did something terrible. They want their life back, and they want millions of dollars.
The people,
because
the people who support them.
Because they have a chip on their shoulder against white people. They think the entire world is racist, even though half the cops in this were cops of color. I mean, it doesn't matter. And they have white guilt, and they want to set black guys free. They want to believe that black guys didn't do it, but they did do it. And by the way, we're hyper-focused on this one rape case in New York. If you want to look at the rape stats of New York and look at the demographics of who's doing it disproportionately, it's incredible. So even if these guys were innocent, which they're not, you still are left with thousands upon thousands of bleep dudes raping chicks, and it's scandalous. So where is our moral compass here?
I mean, I'm against that. I'm against rape. I don't like it.
Okay, well, let's get back to a very simple point, which is, were the parents present in the room? And the answer is just objectively yes. Go ask the Central... Wait a minute. The Central Park Five don't even dispute this. Now, if you want, you could look at the videos yourself and see they pan over and the parent is sitting there. They go, "Who are you? I'm the parent. My name is the such and such. I live at such and such." They went out of their way to make sure these guys were fed, they had drinks, they were comfortable. They went by the book. This is how they do it. These are not evil monsters.
If it's like the way that you say it went down, it would have to be such a big conspiracy for this to like go this far.
There was one minor point, which is one of the kids, Yusuf, said he was 16, but he was actually 15. And so because he lied about his age, they started interviewing him. And then his mother came and was like, "My boy is 15. You can't stop the interview." So Yusuf actually did not get interviewed on camera. And he's the one guy. Everyone else got interviewed on camera with the parents present. But Yusuf's mother was like, "Nope, I don't give permission. He's out of here." So, but nothing was done like illegally or wrong. This is a normal, what happened that night. And they all lied. I mean, at first they all lied. They said, "Oh, I was at a movie." Raymond Santana said, "I was at a movie." They're like, "No, you weren't." They're like, "Your alibi doesn't hold up. It's just, where's your ticket?" And then he goes, "Okay, fine. I was in the park hanging out with friends, but they were doing stuff. I wasn't doing stuff." And the lie just, it unfolds slowly, and it's very predictable. And they're all just trying to, bullshit and get out of it. Would you say that you're good at detecting a lie, or do you say that you're gullible? Which side of the spectrum are you on with that?
I mean, of
You
course,
will,
I'd like to think that I'm, perceptive, but
but you seemed to just accept the word of Mateus Reyes that he did this rape alone, as if this is some
based
Boy
on the
Scout.
physical evidence
No,
that,
no, no, no. His cum is his cum. What does that mean?
it means that's the only physical evidence tying anyone to the crime scene is him.
No, that just means that his cum, he came. That's it. That's all that means. That's a positive. It's a true
Well, then how do
positive.
we know that like 30 people didn't rape this woman? It's like, why stop at 5?
Well,
Like,
because we've interviewed everyone. There was only certain individuals in the park that day. This group of people. Some
they
of them knew
interviewed
each.
like, did they interview like all like how many was
Yes,
it? Like
30
35?
dudes. Yes, and
They
those
interviewed
interviews,
all of them?
and you can go look at some of those interviews, and they're very informative. So not just the 5 guys, which is damning evidence, but if you listen to Steve Lopez, he was a complete fucking liar. Steve Lopez. So his interview was almost useless. But everyone else, they're like, yeah, I was there. There's a guy, Clarence Thomas, I believe, and he's like, I saw those guys. I saw the girl. I saw them doing shit over there. I was over here. These guys have no incentive to lie. Some of these other dudes who are like, look, I'm freaked out. I'm trying to get out of trouble here. You can patch together because look, life is not that simple.
Yeah,
These people are
yeah.
trying to get out of trouble, and they've done something totally messed up. And it's not just these bleeps, these kid bleeps who are liars. There's a ton of people who lie when they're under cross examination. They're
Yeah,
just
yeah, totally, yeah.
lying is just like a basic. It's like the first thing you learn
I mean,
about.
most people lie when they're arrested. Yeah,
Right. And it's flimsy lies and they all fall apart. And this is why cops and investigators, they're not just going to be like, oh, really? You didn't do it? Oh, okay. It's like, Jesus. Do you think O.J. Simpson is guilty?
Yeah, I do.
Why? He says he's not.
Fuck you.
What?
Because there's a lot of physical evidence and overwhelming circumstantial evidence that
Yeah, but
combine to
couldn't have
create
been
a pretty compelling case.
couldn't have been planted. I mean, there was one of those cops said the N-word once. So
I mean, maybe 0.01% chance, sure, but
okay,
I
good.
find it more in any criminal case. Of course, you're never going to know for certain. You go by what's the most plausible explanation based on the facts and evidence you're given.
Well, I would suggest and recommend, if just as an experiment for yourself, go look at the video I did on Rodney Reed. I've done a few on Rodney Reed. That's the guy I was joking about his
All
skull.
right.
This is a case that Kim Kardashian she thinks this guy's innocent. I'm telling you with as much certainty as I can muster, he definitely is murderer. He's the guy that raped and murdered this woman.
Mhm.
Now, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of dramatic that people are so polarized and there's this contrasting viewpoints on this. I want you to go in and as a thought experiment, look at the video and then give me an informed argument as to why you think he's guilty or innocent. I'm not telling you to believe what I believe. You independently tell me why you believe what you believe.
No, I'm not familiar with that case like at
Yeah,
all. So.
and that's what's good about it is that you haven't heard the talking points. You haven't heard the propaganda. I want you to challenge yourself to be like, wait a minute, how can I back this up? Like,
Yeah.
how do I know what I know?
When I watch new stuff, I know, how things are framed, and I know it's an
Mhm.
oversimplification. I know there's a narrative, and that things are a lot more complicated.
Exactly.
I can see that. I just.
And do you recognize that people, they have biases, but they also have a tribal allegiance to race. So a lot of times coming from the other side, for example, the fact that Kim Kardashian only finds black people to get out of prison. There's not a case where she's like, that one white dude who murdered a black woman? I don't think he did it. Let's get him free.
I'm sure that would be like bad optics. Yeah.
Yes. And what you just described as bad optics is a complete lack of moral accountability and any consistency whatsoever. So it is a silver bullet in their integrity. They are frauds, and they're doing this for other reasons. They actually don't care about the individual cases. The optics, like you say, have to fit a greater story that they like to tell, which is, hey, bleeps don't do stuff. They're innocent, and the real villains of the world are white people. This is a lie. It is a story, and I don't buy it, and I won't stand for it.
Okay, I mean, I believe that you're being genuine, and that you have your reasons for coming to these conclusions.
Yes, and by the way, if the entire world was hell bent on vilifying Korean men and claiming that Korean men are guilty when they're not, or I would make videos about that. It just so happens that the world has freaked out about race, and I happen to be a lighthouse in a sea of insanity when it comes to this topic. I don't care about this, actually. We could talk about a million other things, but it's just, it is a very divisive issue, and it's something that people are massively wrong on, and it's repeating. So it's not just Rodney Reed, it's not just the Central Park Five. It's going to go on and on. In fact,
But
the new video.
do you think there's any chance that you're wrong on race, like
In what way?
just in any way? Is there any points where you have like doubt, or do you feel like pretty solid in your perspective?
No, I mean, it's a very vague question, like wrong on race. Like, what is the
Well,
question about
you know
race?
what I mean. Well, you're talking about like not like like race in a broad sense, but more in like the issues you address. Like I could tell you, like with race realism, what's most compelling to me,
Mhm.
obviously, is if you look like around the world and see patterns repeat themselves. Yeah,
Exactly.
that I would consider that one of the best arguments for race realism. Not enough to like pull me onto that camp, but so for you, I'm asking,
Oh yeah.
do you have
I
any
mean, I
like
see. I do a lot of.
arguments from my
Oh,
side that you think are compelling?
I'm not even sure what your side is, but if I assume it's like the Vosh side, um, like,
Not even as far as Vosh, because I mean I've heard
okay,
when Vosh talked about like crime statistics, he thinks his theory is it's like more black people arrested because they're over policed. Um and
that's it's
yeah,
a
I don't
factor. It's a factor. It's not the whole thing, though. Not
yeah,
even close to the
I
whole
don't
thing.
think it's yeah.
Like, there's points to be made. That's the thing. There's kernels of truth on the far left side. For example, when you talk about wealth inequality, that's not. I'm not comfortable with the word inequality because not everyone's supposed to have the same wealth. That's a weird
It'd be like
sort of
wealth
Marxist.
inequity.
Yeah, it's like the differences between generational wealth. It is tied to the history of blacks in the country, which goes back to slavery. So
Yeah.
even though there were plateaus and peaks that they've had after slavery, and even though I'm not saying that their failure, their descent into where they are right now, is the system or structural or institutional, I don't buy that. I think they play a huge part in that. But there's no denying that they where they started was disadvantaged, and it was they had a huge mountain to climb, and so success is breeds success. So if you have
Yeah.
parents that are just highly functional, that it's not going to be shocking when their kids are highly functional.
Yeah.
So my parents were not drug dealers and violent felons and gangsters, right? So how did I turn out? I turned out as a college graduate Eagle Scout who's successful in life.
You're the Eagle Scout.
I'm an Eagle Scout. So, but like my father is a very successful man. My grandfather was incredibly successful. My great grandfather was a doctor. It's like, so I am the byproduct of that history, and it works in reverse. And we see it's disastrous. You were saying that you were from a kind of a fucked up city at one point, and you saw it all around
I
you.
have
And
like a mixed. My background is mixed because my childhood was idyllic, suburban, until age 10, and then yeah, it went to shit.
okay,
So I kind
that's
of
it.
like that's I think why I sympathize with both sides of that coin of how your circumstances influence your outcome, because I think I'm like a good mix of like a little bit functional enough to like
Mhm,
to turn my life around, but like a whole lot of dysfunction due to like the chaos and
for sure.
poverty of like my later years.
Well, it's I can understand that, and the fact that you're self-aware and sort of have a grip on that and understanding of it is a very encouraging sign, because a lot of people are just lost in the midst of it. But
Yeah.
look, I'm not some hardcore conservative dude who's like bootstraps, man. Like everyone, I don't want to hear any excuses. I understand that there are legit causal connections to why people end up in bad situations. I still
Yeah.
hold people accountable for crime and like the personal decision for that. But like, look, you introduce me to the parents of any given thug, and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, like my criticism is going to spill over onto them and then onto
Yeah.
their parents and back we go. So it's a whole culture. That's the thing. It's not just one person's fault. It's their parents and it's their parents and it's, you know, the society and it's the school and the friend group and the gangster culture. And, you know, there's a lot of
Yeah.
different things coming together here. So I'm sort of sensitive to that. I understand that there are legit points to be made from that perspective.
And that's what I think when people say, like, I know people get triggered when you like bring up slavery because it's just like, oh, slavery, you know, but
Yeah, it's
it's that I think it says that because, and then it's, you know, and then like Jim Crow, there's other things, but it's because of the cycle of like the parents, then the kids, and it just it passed on. So that's what
well,
people mean when they say like the legacy of slavery. It's not like because slaves were fucking, you know, they were slaves yesterday, you know, it's like, yeah, it was a long time ago, but you know,
I
only a couple generations, only a couple, you know,
yeah, I
I would
know,
give
but
it more
well,
time.
first
I'll
of
give
all,
it more time to bounce back.
it's way more than a couple generations. But
Well,
look, it's very tiresome. It ended in 1863. Come on,
but
blacks have kids every 20 years, easy.
or but well, maybe more like less than 2 lifetimes. I maybe should rather
Well,
say.
some old ass people you're talking about, but okay,
Well, if they live to be like 80,
150
78.
years. Okay, well, I mean, look, I don't know what point that is, but it's a long time ago, and
Well,
I'm
just
sick of
put in
excuses.
perspective of it's like you know, it was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago.
But do you realize that, you know, we don't hear bitching like this from any other group? Immigrants, everyone's been through trials and tribulations. No one wants to hear it. We don't want to dwell on the
Everyone thinks
past.
they're a victim. You hear bitching from
Yes,
every group.
the victim narrative is so tiring, though. Like, why can't
Right?
people just?
Whites do the same fucking thing. Like the whole
Who?
alt right is based on like white victimhood.
There is some white victimhood going on right now. It's a growing trend. But yes, I'm not going to play their game either, though. There's no
Yeah.
excuses for anyone. That's what's called having one standard for everyone. And I would challenge you to. I mean, do you think you have one standard when it comes to anyone that you would give the same opinion, regardless of the optics, regardless of the races involved? So,
Well, I'm like
so
a more of a relativist, contextual. You know, it for me one standard it doesn't fit all
that's
situations.
troubling to me, to say the least. But like, if the
Well,
Central
what
Park Five
standards
were five,
judgment?
what?
I'm not gonna judge like say like there's a
But
kid who is like abused their whole life, like
no,
and
no,
beaten
no.
and starved, and then the kid stole a candy bar, or a rich kid stole a candy bar. I'm not gonna judge them the same fucking
Yes,
way.
Rachel, listen to me. Um, I'm saying, like, if all things are the same and the only difference is race,
Oh,
I'm
like
suggesting that
all
you
other.
you
Mhm.
would be universally different about the topic. So if the Central Park Five were five white guys raping a black woman, there's no chance in hell you'd be going to bat for these five white guys. None. You would avoid the topic.
Well, because I would be less inclined to think that that scenario would happen in the first place, you know.
I mean, it's just very, very telling what people choose to speak out about. So they have their little pet projects, their little virtue signals, like, ooh, that was a racist thing, and a black was innocent in that case. And then, oh, really? What about the 1,000 other cases where blacks were guilty? You're not talking about those? No, it doesn't interest me. Anyway, got to go
No,
back to my cat video. Bye.
no, I agree that that happens, and there's a huge issue on the left, and you know, with
Massive.
people are afraid to talk about stuff that it is a thing, you
But
know.
but you have been way deeper in the rabbit hole of race realism than I have. I've talked to Jared Taylor. I had a public conversation with him. You can go watch that. As
Oh, maybe that's why I thought you were racist too. Was the Jared Taylor thing?
holy shit! Wait a
What?
minute. There's
It's
nothing in the video. Wait, go timestamp
guilt
anything
by
that's remotely
association.
racist.
I'm just
I know.
explaining
Okay, but
my
wait a minute.
reasoning based on a
Look,
few
uh,
inputs.
you come from a world where Jared Taylor is conceived of as the emperor of racism. Meanwhile, the
Even
guy
though
is
I know, guess what? I know he's really fucking likable. Okay.
he's a Yale educated Japanese
Yeah.
dude.
I know he grew up in Japan.
He
I've listened to every one of his interviews
Okay,
because
so you
I
know that this
can't.
guy is Mr. Rogers with a backbone.
I
Okay?
know.
He's a
I
square. He's a
He's
nice
a dream
gentleman.
come true for the white nationalist movement. You know, he's really good.
Well, look, I'm not going to say the same about Richard Spencer. That dude is problematic. But
He's not even
but
1% as like clever or tactful as
exactly.
as Jared Taylor.
I know. But many people in your camp would just lump Richard Spencer with Jared Taylor and just be like, yeah, they're all Nazis. Fuck them. But there is a huge chasm between those two men.
Though I know I
One's
agree,
gay,
and I
one's straight,
actually
for
like
sure.
you. Wait, do you think? Well, I know the big difference to me is like Jared Taylor doesn't do the whole JQ thing,
Right. He's
and
not on board with that. And also
which
he's
is
not as,
abnormal. And the like the people who want like white ethno state, usually it goes hand in hand, you know.
yeah, he's not as inflammatory either. But you've mentioned white nationalism. What is your idea of what do you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the whole like whites need a homeland, specifically in regards to like
Hmm.
America. They're like, you know, generally, I mean, it greatly varies on what kind of like ethno state. Is it like they want 80% white, or do
Right.
they want it all white? Like, there's a
Okay.
lot of variation, but I'm talking about the general ideology of like we
Uh-huh.
want a majority white country, if not all white.
Okay. So that's an interesting take. I'd like to discuss it. Do you know how many people are watching us right now?
No.
Well, I almost don't want to tell you.
What is it like? I did my stream. I think I got up to like 20 viewers
20
earlier.
viewers. Yeah, that was me and all my friends. Well, we got 644. That's a lot of people.
Well,
If you
hey,
look,
how's chat doing? I don't see chat at all.
I
So,
mean, I'm not even looking at them because I'm engaged with you. But okay,
all right.
let's
Well,
talk.
hi chat. What is up?
What up? Oh, yeah, I could put some stuff on. Are you? If I don't know, I, can you see the chat? Is it possible?
I was able when I got disconnected. I looked at it. I could try to click it. Let's see.
Well, forget the chat. The
Oh,
chat's
yeah, I guess they're probably
it's
God knows.
cancer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think let's keep it
No
pure.
offense, chat. I'm sure you all are like really having thought-provoking takes on this.
Exactly. Okay, so white nationalism. So would you say that someone who said is everyone is a white nationalist, from people that want 100% ethno states to, I just want a majority, like even if it's a slim majority, I definitely want the majority. The
Mhm.
only way to not be a white nationalist is to say, I want an equal number of races in my country or something like that, or I want to be the minority in my country, like I'm a self-hating anti-white nationalist. It's either one or the
No, I
other. Is
don't.
that the
Well, if you're someone who doesn't believe in like you know, in like race realism or whatever term you want to use, then for there isn't like a, especially in America, which is a country, it's a young country of immigrants. That's always been how it
yes?
is, you
A
know.
lot, a lot of the
So
immigrants, the vast majority of the immigrants were white Europeans. It was founded by white
I mean,
Europeans.
for like, well, you know,
What?
I'm not gonna get into who, you know, who
Well,
founded
literally, it was
it.
founded. Go look at the signatures on the
Oh, look
Declaration
at
of
the fucking
Independence.
Native Americans! Like, come on,
They couldn't
you know,
write.
you can't. Uh, all right,
Wait a
I'm
minute.
not going to get
Wait,
into
wait,
that.
wait a minute. The Native Americans. There's 500 tribes. Which ones? We're not
Well,
talking
what I'm
about that.
saying
We're
is
talking about
that it was
America, the modern
America
day.
was populated before, so I think it's misleading to
Yes.
say like, oh, when
Well, we're
the
talking about
Europeans like pulled up on the Mayflower and discovered
yes.
it.
Wait a
No.
minute. We're talking about the United States of America. We're not talking about
Okay,
the
as
Native
the
American
like,
tribes. I
okay.
acknowledge that there were tribes of people there before.
All right, this is getting sidetracked. What was even the initial
The
question?
point is, everyone is a white nationalist unless you say what? Like, what is the other side of that? To say I want less whites in the country?
No, to say that
I don't
the
care.
like
I don't see
external
color.
characteristics, it's like if I was like, oh, I want more blonde people, I want more
Okay,
people with curly hair, I want more people with
right.
like black hair.
Left-handed
I
people.
mean,
Right.
yeah,
So
it's
if you think that the proper answer to what percentage of whites do you want in your country is I don't care.
well, because when you do that, it's obviously we're not in like a thing where it's like, oh, if you snapped your fingers and had like a 50% demographic change of people from different cultures coming in, like with no adjustment, no assimilation, yeah, of course there would be a fucking like it would be an issue. It has to be done in like a
Right.
reasonable way.
So these are good
But over
considerations
like
to make.
long term, if people are properly assimilated, like they happen in America
Okay.
like many times before, I don't see.
So this is
Yeah,
not it's not a video game, and you can't just snap your fingers and have equally functional people who are non-criminals and who are successful just be of varying races. You can't just play with the numbers like that. So like you're saying, sometimes immigrants come with other issues, like, oh, these Muslims are coming, and it's really not the fact that they're brownish that is problematic for me. It's their behavior, or it's their beliefs, it's their customs, it's their culture, it's their attitude towards women, something like that. So it's not strictly a racial statement when it comes to that.
well, yeah, I mean, but the whole Muslim race thing is they're a little linked,
It's a see, but you think that it is. I would say it's really not. Um, you
Come
know, I,
on, we find patterns in things. Come on.
yes. Well, I mean, I've lived in Germany for like 8 years,
You
and
know a lot of
this
like German Muslims.
many. There's like 4 to 5% of the country is Turkish, right? So they have a huge influx. And then Angela Merkel brought in millions of Muslims over the past 5 years. And some of those people were violating. They were sexually assaulting people, raping people, killing people. Young.
No, that bad things do happen when
No. But don't
people.
just.
No, I'm
Okay.
not saying like bad
Yeah.
shit happens. The
Okay.
fuck ever.
Shit happens, right?
No, I'm saying like bad things happen when immigration isn't handled in a good way.
Okay. So
There's too many people who aren't assimilated at once. Yeah,
I would
that's
say
fucking issues. There's gonna be cultural clashes. But then I don't see the answer as being like, let's close off the borders. To me,
okay.
it seems like let's focus on like making this process go smoothly and try to like do what's best for all parties involved.
I would say that I am aware that there's many great, amazing people in the world, totally functional, valuable, that of all races, that it would be incredible to have as a neighbor, to have as a fellow citizen. I've lived it. I've lived it. Well, here in Rio, but in Melbourne, tons
Yeah.
of Asians down there, Indians, whatever. I've lived it in Germany, but in Toronto, I'm going over to Toronto soon. Even in LA, like you have diversity can work. It's just it doesn't always work, and we will notice the pattern when it comes to anger, animus towards us, when it comes to crime rates. Like there's a reason why I don't live in a black neighborhood right now and never would. And it's not personal. It's just that's the facts. There's like a solid reason not to do that. So like don't go to New Orleans. I would never recommend it for anyone. It's because of the crime rate, not because of the people there. There's a ton of great people there of all races, but these are truths that we cannot avoid. We cannot just be polite and just pretend like these things
Well,
aren't
no,
actually
but
real.
see, the thing that we're disagreeing on is it's like, yeah, there are these statistical realities. Like, acknowledge, that those exist, but what we disagree on is what's causing them and how to fix them.
Okay, so let me get back to a basic question. First of all, it's not my job to fix it. My job is to survive and thrive in the best way possible. So I adapt to what is true in the world.
Well,
I'm
I'm
not
not saying
some.
you need to fix it, but I mean,
Well, you
like,
just said. You said, how do we
what's
fix
your
it?
like? What do you think is like? I mean, it's something you talk
Here's
about a lot on your channel. So it's like, what is your goal? And like,
yes. I think talking about it, engaging, processing these things and coming up with solutions is fun and can be productive. But like the immediate answer is, how do you fix the Titanic? You don't. You jump on a lifeboat and get the hell out. So the answer is white flight. That's why I left Los Angeles, primarily because I probably couldn't afford to live in the super white part of Los Angeles, and it was a fucked up place. Like I didn't like the crime and the gangsters and the bullshit. So I left and I went to vastly superior places. So will you acknowledge, are you comfortable acknowledging that the best countries on the planet are white majority countries, with the notable exceptions of Japan and Korea?
I mean, if by most measurable statistics,
Every
what
measurable, right?
like
Livability,
European countries, and
correct.
where there's, and American, Canada, whatever. Yeah, they're doing pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I would
that is
agree with that.
not an insignificant statement. And I will point out that not every white country is doing great. So we have more
Well, yeah,
fucked
you have
up.
like what, like the Eastern Europe or whatever, and
Yeah, and it's
also like with Asians. Look at fucking North Korea as a shit show. What about their high IQ?
that's some specific reasons as to why. Well, first of all, I think their IQ is lower than the South Koreans, and partly because of malnutrition.
Uh,
Their
so
heights.
now you see the
The
environmental.
now no, but they are
Okay.
actually being starved. That's a difference. Black people are more obese on average than whites. Correct?
No, but that has nothing to do with like having adequate
Oh, but
nutrition.
come on, they're
Um,
well fed. What are you
It's
talking
not
about?
well fed. Do you see, like, when you live in a poor neighborhood, like, I have to walk like 2 miles to go buy a fucking apple.
Okay,
Like,
well,
when you
yeah,
live in a
but
poor neighborhood, all you have access to are those fucking like sticky honey buns for
I
50
know
cents at McDonald's.
it's
When
true.
you're in a budget, if I could eat that shit without getting sick, I'd probably only eat that shit,
Well, that might speak to their
Fucking poison.
diabetes and their obesity and their heart problems, but it doesn't speak to their success in life or their intelligence.
But I'm just saying, nutrition isn't like, oh, fat people get the best nutrition and
Yes, I agree with that. I'm not saying they do,
right?
but I'm saying they're not
It
starving
doesn't
like
work.
the
They
people in
have
North
the
Korea.
most nutrition.
Yeah, but in North Korea, they're literally starving. Okay, so we're back to these white countries and the fact that they do so well. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's not an accident. It's not just coincidence.
Mhm.
So this is why the notion of, hey, are you in favor of white nations, or are you a white nationalist? Why wouldn't I be? Why wouldn't I be willing to acknowledge that these are the best countries on the planet?
Well, operating under your premise, of course, that would be the conclusion. That's what, if you
Like,
believe that there's unchangeable intrinsical differences that on a broad scale that cause huge
no, I
disparities
don't even
between
care.
races.
Wait a minute, I'm not even saying why or how, or it's not even relevant to me. I'm talking about reality. Why would I go to Jamaica when I could go
I
to
just feel like
Switzerland?
the context is so important,
Wait a
I
minute,
feel
no,
like
no,
you
but
can't.
you're smashing two conversations into one. Talking about why a country is the way it is. First of all, it's quite obvious to tell. You go down, zoom down into the personal level. You see one person fucking up, one person committing crime. Look at one family breaking down. Then multiply that. Now you got a community. Now you got a nation. Why do you think Haiti is Haiti and Sweden is Sweden? Why do you think Sweden is no longer even Sweden?
I think there's like been a million different fucking books written on this shit because it's very fucking complicated.
And let me and you're gonna somehow blame colonialism or white people for the flaws of every nation of color. You are.
Get ready. Get
Yeah,
ready.
that I know. This is the
No, I
only
mean,
way.
no, I don't have the fucking answers for the most complicated questions of human development in the world.
Okay,
I don't
so
have a
so
fucking
what
answers on
about
that. But
when
there's
we
a lot.
found?
There's many different theories over like, what resources or like what countries are landlocked or like. There's a
Yes,
million fucking
there's
different.
some things, but I think you're clouding what is obvious. So when we found the 8 nations of Africa, the people of Africa, we found them in a certain condition. Same thing with the Aboriginals. Same thing with the Native Americans. I'm not saying they're all equal, but I'm saying that they were
I think the
at a
Native
scale.
Americans, from what I've learned about their society, they were actually doing pretty fucking good.
They're
But continue.
quite barbaric, but
Continue.
yeah, and they were technologically nowhere near what we were at. But okay, yes, look, we are not at fault for their development and their patterns, and I find it really like demeaning and insulting to suggest that it is the hand of imperialism and colonialism and the presence of whites that somehow has just ruined these countries. Like, they don't have autonomy, they can't figure the shit out. Like, if Haiti decided to just start kicking ass and, I don't know, leading the world in computer tech, IT, whatever, like India has done, then we couldn't stop them if we tried. This is what Japan did. Why do you think Japan and Germany were destroyed in World War II, totally devastated, and then rose back? Part of it was investment, but it wasn't just that. It was the people there and their will to survive and their intelligence and their ability to get shit done. They have a track record of it. And on the flip side, there's a long track record of failure, corruption, disarray. It's an embarrassing history. When you go to Africa, when you look at Africa, and I am from Africa, my family's from South Africa.
Are you You're from Africa?
Yeah, my dad was born in South Africa. My grandfather's South African. My middle name is in Zulu. Okay, that a lot of people don't tend to realize that. So I'm not saying it's here or there. I'm not sitting here trying to flex on these people and like, oh yeah, man, Germany's better than Zimbabwe. It just is. And to like shuffle our feet and be like, oh, I'm gonna pretend that's not true.
No, I mean, I will agree with you. The material conditions are obviously better. If I had to choose a place to live, no, yeah, of course. Like, but the thing about me, like having these conversations, I just don't feel like you can remove it from the context. I feel like
But
that's
what context? What context is?
the
You're
context of
always
like
gonna
the world
blame.
is really fucking complicated, But
Okay, but
at the same time, a lot of these countries are experiencing like rapid growth and are changing. You see so many like things change throughout fucking history that it's
okay,
like,
but you're
why is this the end of history? This is it. This
no,
status
no.
quo is the natural order. Like,
I agree that there's a lot of moving parts. It is very complex. It is fluid. It's not like a simple answer, but I don't want to over confuse this thing and lose track of the main point, which is like, go look at the top 25 countries in the world and look at the demographics of those countries. And it's Canada, it's Australia, it's Germany, it's Austria. I mean, I've been to all those places. I've seen it firsthand,
mm-hmm.
and it's stunning. And I'll tell you this, and it's a little bit embarrassing to admit it, but the first time I went to Germany, I got out, and I'm from Los Angeles, so I'm from a kind of a fucked up place. Like, my little suburb where I grew up was great, but then the second I left that, it was like, oh God, I'm in
Yeah.
Gotham City. And when I went to Germany, the first thing I thought when I walked around and saw the people and saw how it all worked, I thought, holy shit, this is what I would have expected from a place filled with white people. Like, this is what they were capable of creating if they didn't have to deal with all this other bullshit dragging us down. And I'm
Did you
saying
ever see
that
Stefan Molyneux had a very similar video? That was like
about
Stefan
Poland.
Molyneux's point of
Yeah,
like, yeah, he was like,
yeah,
you know, they didn't complain about racism there. Like that was him.
exactly.
Like, yeah.
It is totally refreshing, and people, I recommend you travel. And I'm not saying it's necessarily the case. There's tons of black people. There's communities of black people, large swaths of black people who are completely functional and successful. And if they had a town all by themselves, like whether it be Black Wall Street or just a high class part of Atlanta or New Orleans or whatever it is, college educated. I mean, I went to school with a ton of blacks. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the other people who stain our culture. They stain everything. They ruin it. They ruin cities. Full cities are ruined. Not to
But I
mention
feel like,
countries.
but isn't that more of a reason to try to intervene? Because if you look at the
We
black
have.
community, like if you said you like Coleman Hughes, he's
Love him.
talked a lot about how there's been incredible progress in the black community. So
Has been, yes, in certain aspects. In
so it's
other
like
aspects, not.
why does that end here? It's
I
like
don't
why?
say it. I don't say it should end. I say that.
But it kind of seems like you think that there is like a ceiling effect of like how far certain races can go when you look at averages.
Well, no, they've gotten worse. So they definitely are capable of doing way
Well,
better.
after the drug war, which
I wouldn't put it on that. I put it on the criminal nature, the gang culture, the total lack of parenting. I mean, you could put 90% of it on parenting.
But like
It,
the black family structure was like on par with white families,
yes,
in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then it was in the
it was.
80s
And let me guess,
that
it was our
everything
fault. So the war on drugs, we made drugs illegal. Drugs were always
no, but I
illegal.
think that it was a huge
Yeah, but
step back.
look, there are problems with drugs. There are communities and families destroyed with drugs, and that's black, white, and
And I feel
everyone.
like that's had like a huge lasting impact.
Yes, Native Americans too. They are ravaged by drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And whose fault is it? At some point, someone has to step up and be like, I'm not going to take the easy way out and say, oh, it was the Treaty of 1732 that has led me to becoming an alcoholic and raping people. It's absurd. Like, no one has time for this. We're all on the clock. We have finite lives. We can't sit here and make excuses our whole lives. We got to push forward, and we know it's possible. That's the thing.
All right. What does pushing forward look like to
You,
you?
well, on a personal level, first of all, this is not my quest to solve everyone's problem on the earth. So I am going to pick.
But the other things, like the way your videos are, like you're talking very like fairly reasonable to me, but it's like
Mhm.
the way your videos are, I don't see them as something adding to the advancement of black people.
Advancement of black people. What am I? I'm the NAACP all of a sudden.
No, but I mean, if you do
I am.
care
I
and like
think
are doing it with the purpose of like highlighting the truth, and if you're
yes. The truth is that it is a ghastly clown show, a freak show that many people in the black community are celebrating black murderers and rapists. I think that is atrocious, and they're going to get called out on it because I respect them. You don't respect them. You infantilize them and treat them like they're just these broken
am I
toys. And
doing
they
that? Do you think I'm doing
yes,
that?
I
Really?
think that you should be
Really?
horrified. You should be horrified that they are celebrating rapists and murderers. You would not stand
It
for
just
this in your
doesn't.
community. In the white community, no one would. If people started celebrating Ted Bundy or some
People do
notorious.
celebrate Ted Bundy.
Yes, okay, so take a look at the white women who like wanted to marry Ted Bundy while he was in jail, or Charles Manson, people like that. I would have the same criticism for them. That's insane. I don't. I
I
don't.
don't see the black community like jumping up and down like we love our rapists and murderers.
They do
I
that to
think
a
it's a
huge
bit more
degree.
complicated than that,
No, 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 no. First of all, are you aware? Are you aware that 43% of current day blacks think OJ's innocent? 43%. So that's what I'm talking about. OJ
I
Simpson
mean, okay,
definitely
yeah, and
killed these people.
I think he's fucking guilty. So obviously
Right.
I'm gonna think that's a dumb take. But I also understand since a fucking SJW, and I do believe that racism fucking exists and
Okay,
it
so
definitely impacted. So but my reasoning for why they would believe that would be like, well, they're more suspicious of the criminal justice system in general. So they're not gonna always take it at face value. They are gonna
I,
see like
I
it in
think
like a more simplified way. That
I
would be
think they're wrong, and I think it's stupid, and I don't think
I
it's an
think they're
excuse.
wrong
I
on
think it's
that. I
yeah.
think that's fucked up. And it is like if you think about Nicole Brown or whatever her name's family, then the other people that were killed who like never get talked about. Yeah, that's gotta fucking suck. Totally. that sucks. I don't like that. But
No.
I don't. I just
Mm.
don't. I don't know.
Well,
I
look,
don't see this as like a big.
you think that every video of mine should somehow be, how can I uplift blacks? Look, I am not black. I don't
No,
speak
but
for their
it's
community.
all like bleep this.
Yes, I'm talking about because it is a unbelievably prevalent issue in modern society. Okay, I used to talk about religion all the time. That was a hot button issue. We really cared about it. It really mattered. But the atheists got their point across, and we don't want to beat a dead horse. Right
Yeah.
now, we live in a world where there's growing racial division. There's race riots all the time. There's a huge influx of
All the time. I think that's a bit of an overstatement. Like there's groups like Black Lives Matter who do like protest for and advocate for their causes, but I live in a very diverse city. I don't see people fucking rioting. Like occasionally there's a protest
okay.
and it's like totally peaceful, normal.
Are you aware that 93% of interracial crime is black to white?
I'm not familiar with that statistic.
Okay, well that is the ballpark of what we're talking about. It changes obviously. 93% of the time there is a violent crime between the races. It is going from black to white.
Is that something? I mean, I feel like most crimes are committed like within a race and
Most crimes are. Most crimes are. Correct. So there's many things to be said. Most crimes are committed between the same race, but overall crimes are wildly disproportionate. Blacks are committing them. And when it comes to the topic, the subcategory of interracial crime, they are almost completely dominating it. So that is the reality of the world. And this is why it's so frustrating, why people like me are needed, is because people like you and the people that you watch on the left are painting a picture which is completely the opposite of that. They're acting like
I think I'm being fairly nuanced about it though. I don't like I see
yes,
like the
I'm
media
impressed. I'm
oversimplifies
impressed.
things. Like
You are willing to at least listen to the other side, which is a lot of people don't do that.
yeah, I'm probably already fucking canceled.
Exactly.
Fuck.
But I mean, it's so emotional. That's the thing. Most arguments, the most frustrating arguments people have in life are ones where one person is speaking from a place of rationality and the other is speaking from emotion. It's like a mathematician talking to an artist and they're trying to communicate and they're just not. They're talking in different languages. And so if you want to just talk emotionality and say, oh, slavery bad. Okay, let's do 10 minutes on how slavery is bad. Okay, and then let's do 10 minutes on how blacks are great. And I love these 100 blacks. They're fucking fantastic. And then we'll talk about black beauty. And oh my God, isn't there's so many black models that I'd love to bang. Okay, and now I get you in this place of, all right, are we clear? We're all good that all this positive energy.
Like it seems like there's been a large cultural shift to trying to lift black people up. Yeah, to help fix the fucking issues that you're talking about.
It's gotten way worse, and we have stupid shit like reparations.
Sure, sometimes it gets fucking ridiculous, but like at the same
everything
time,
is racist. It's hysteria. We're living in a moral panic.
They're trying to improve the situation.
No, they are. That's the problem. They are cancer. They don't even realize it, and they're self-important. These people are trying to promote themselves as saviors.
People are working with like bad. Like, do you think I have bad intentions? Like talking about these
misfired.
Like, I feel like I know
misfired empathy. That's why. Because look.
Well, but no, but it's not good. It's like I want communities around me to succeed. It's better for everyone.
That's good. It's good-willed people.
Misfired. It's also selfish. Like it's empathy for myself because I want everyone to do well. And
first of all, I would suggest you leave. We will send me and some of my white friends are going to send a helicopter to you and lift you out of that area that you're in and take you away from all of that nonsense. Now, yes, we all want things to be better, but this is a massive project. It takes time and it's up to them. Like you're an addict or previous addict. You know that addicts will never change unless they want to change.
But it's a combination of things because when you're in it, like addiction and free will, when you're in an addictive mindset is very complicated. So I don't know.
Well, here's one thing that is never going to solve anything is pinning the problems in the black community on the white community. It is not our fault. We have nothing to do with this. We just want to get along. We're like Rodney King.
I know it can seem like that's what's happening. And a lot of people on the left, they are not very pragmatic or tactful. They're not.
They just have the boogeyman.
The goal isn't like, oh, we hate white people. We want you, Devin. We want you to feel so fucking guilty for being a white man. That's not.
I have nothing to do, and Glenn Lowry and McWhorter would say this too. Same with Coleman Hughes. I have nothing to do with blacks getting married at the rate that they do. Nothing. I want them to be successful and happy and positive. Why
But it's
wouldn't
not an
I?
individual thing. It's like we haven't addressed like the widespread systematic like inequality that yes,
What
society
systematic? There's no systematic.
because we were on an even playing field to start with.
What?
You know, so
What start? No, we're not alive 200 years ago. We're not vampires.
no, but
It's
I'm
not a
saying
race.
you
It's not
even
an even
said
playing
that
field.
it's passed down generation to
Okay.
generation.
No,
Like your
no one.
situation is
Okay.
directly affected by your history.
So let me break this off to you. You're breaking down black, white. Oh, and there's inequalities. How about the inequalities between whites and whites? Do you realize that we're not
I
all
don't like that either.
okay? Right. So Bernie Sanders talks about all the time. There's billionaire whites, and then there's homeless whites. On drugs who have no money. There's a huge disparity between poor whites and rich whites. In fact, there's twice as many poor white people in the country than poor blacks.
Mm-hmm.
Twice as many. So,
well, yeah, I mean, statistically, we are obviously
yes, but no one talks about that, and it's completely vaporized as an issue because it's like, well, yeah, they're white though, so they don't have an excuse.
People totally talk about like the white working class. That's like a huge fucking demographic.
Yeah, but they don't make the same excuses. They don't say, well, remember 200 years ago, and hey, poor white guy, your father was poor. He worked in a mine, and your dad and his dad was
they
poor.
have different obstacles.
No, you know what it is?
I would say
In
the
your
same thing
mind,
that a lot of times they are a product of being born into a disadvantaged circumstance, and I would like to lift everyone out of poverty.
Okay, but there is no one saying to the poor white guy who is 5 generations of being poor, no one's saying to him, don't worry, stay poor. In fact, commit crimes and I'll make excuses for you because it's not even your fault that you're poor because there's a history of your family being poor. No, we and you, we all would look at that white guy and be like, not good enough, dude. Do better, go to school, get a fucking job.
Well, that's not, I mean, I'm a progressive. I don't approach the situation like that. I'm like, oh, what can we do to improve the standards that are, it's more conducive to like people flourishing?
Okay, so why is it that people in your camp do asinine things like racially divide an issue like climate change? And you talk about climate justice and oh my god, the climate, so our planet is melting and we're all going to burn to death, and it's like, yeah, but the blacks will burn first. Probably not because they have more melanin.
I mean, if you look like over what countries are going to get fucked first, it's not.
Says who? So wait, so you're telling me the ozone layer is racist?
It's the people. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
we're all in the same boat.
You're all about just stating facts. It is just a fact that it's probably going to be non-white people who are going to deal with the most effects.
But it's an insignificant byproduct. So if you tell me that a poor neighborhood tends to be more polluted or be in a shittier, less desirable part of town, and the rich neighborhood, they're by the coast and they're yes, because they can afford to be there. I get it. That's not some evil thing. I sell a T-shirt and it's called Systems of Systemic Structural Institutionalism or some shit like that. These are all words that you can put in a.
But the words have meaning.
No, there's no meaning to it whatsoever.
Yes, there is.
None. All of those words, I'm telling you, you've been taught a lie. You need to deprogram yourself. These words don't mean anything.
I deprogrammed myself from thinking like you.
What are you thinking like me? What do I think like? I'm correct.
Think that, like you think that it's like the black community is just like this personal choice of like, yeah, let's fuck up our fucking lives,
What? Who said that?
What?
No,
what do you think is going on? What do you think is going on?
Wait. Am I supposed to judge people on the content of their character or not?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I mean, should I do actions speak louder than words? What am I supposed to judge someone on other than their actions? So I'm looking at them. I'm looking at the choices they make.
Context of their actions, like
no, I don't. It's not an excuse. I hold them accountable. I hold everyone accountable, and people will look at me and be like, "God, why aren't you putting on your baby? Why aren't you like treating them like babies and go easy on them? They can't take it, Devin. They can't handle it." Do you want me to badmouth white people? Let's go over white rapists. Dylan Roof. Do you want me to? I could badmouth Dylan Roof for 10 minutes. Would that cleanse the palate?
No,
because the same thing applies. There's no difference in the logic when you bring in black people.
But there's different circumstances bring
about
different situations that influence people's actions. We're literally
that's an excuse. You just gave them a pass
on a dirt ball who learn behavior from our families and our surroundings.
Okay, so let me ask you.
Malleable.
Let's go into a little hyper specific. If a guy joins a gang and starts committing criminal activity in that gang, do you
Mhm.
blame him, or do you say no, he had no choice, it was the gang
Um,
culture and it was for self-defense?
no person who's born into like a good situation is like, you know what? I'm gonna go fucking throw my life away and join a gang and probably get murdered. It's That's almost
So then,
exclusively happens in like very poor neighborhoods.
so let me,
So
you
for
tell
me,
me,
yeah, it's a
you,
product of a circumstance, and of course, I don't know how much personal responsibility people have. Like obviously, there's some degree, but I do believe that the context is very important when judging
okay,
these situations.
bottom line, are white people responsible for black gangs?
That's I don't
Oh, no, it's not
support
a
the
trick question.
framing of that.
Rachel, Rebecca, Jessica, listen to me. There's a very simple answer to that, and the answer is no, of course not. What an absurd notion.
You're misunderstanding like what people mean when
No,
they talk about
you
like
bury yourself in faux nuance. This is fake nuance, which is only has one objective in mind, which is to cloud the issue so you don't have to call people out and hold people accountable. What do you hold the black community accountable for? Name one thing.
what do what do you mean? I
What what feature of the
They
modern
can
day
still
black
be
community
held
is their
accountable. I'm not
responsibility?
saying that like, oh, there should be no consequences because like there was slavery. I'm saying that when
Okay, so name one thing.
in analyzing these consequences, it's important to look at context and how in a broader context we can improve conditions so that we
Okay,
don't have these fucking
here's
situations.
here's another fun point, which I like.
So like yeah, say with Alice Marie Johnson, which started this whole fucking shit.
Urgh.
Yeah. She fucked up. She was in a
Yes.
bad situation that obviously
Hmm.
didn't she didn't do the best thing in it. Yeah, she became a big drug dealer.
And
That's bad. And I
she
think
takes
she should
ownership
have
over
had
that. She
she
said
does
that
have some responsibility.
a,
And I
a
think
ton.
I'm
Yes.
not saying that she's just like this like, fucking
Everybody has a sob story. I mean, by this
yeah,
logic,
but some
anyone
sob
can get away
stories
with
are
anything.
way softer than
Yes, but
others.
it doesn't count for anything. When you're hurting other people and you're victimizing others, your sob story is worth fuck all. It
I
doesn't
just
help anything. And it's not a
well, it's
solution
not about
either.
well,
For us
in
to
order
give,
to address it so these issues stop happening, then you absolutely need to look at why they
no,
happen.
no, for these issues to stop happening, we have to hold people accountable for committing the thing that is the issue.
So
I
you
mean,
think that's working like mass incarceration? You think that's like
no,
really lifting up the black community?
well, the mass incarceration, the problem is mass criminality. It's not incarceration. It's a
No,
criminality.
but
If
I'm
we didn't have
saying
the
that's the living quality of the black family has gotten
oh,
worse
come on.
after the war on drugs. Factually.
Stop. This is code for you to say black people committing crimes and going to prison is the fault of white people because
No, it's
we
about like
decided to have a rule that you can't
when
do
there's an
drugs.
obstacle, it's about how you deal with it. Like I said myself, when I was doing drugs, if I got fucking locked up in jail, surrounded by other criminals, like I would have came out a lot more fucked up than I
Yes,
already am.
yes, yes. But I
But
noticed that
I
you
was luckily I got fucking slap on the wrist. I literally assaulted an officer. I fucking kicked them. I attacked them like a fucking
mhm,
maniac.
you
Slap on the
instantly,
wrist.
we were
Slap on
talking
the
about
wrist.
we were talking about mass incarceration and criminality, and you instantly pivoted to talking about the war on drugs and drug
But
use,
because
and
for me,
that's
it's
not the
not
issue.
pairing. It's
Do
that
you, that's
you can't
a minor part
separate
of our
it.
prison is filled with non-violent drug offenders. The vast majority are violent offenders. So you just gave a total pass to assault, robbery, grand theft. I mean,
The vast majority are violent offenders.
yes, forty
Of
percent
people
in prison. 40%.
40%. That's not wait. The majority of
Yes, 20% property crime, 20% non-violent in nature, and then violent crime is a huge thing. So
well, but
rape,
that doesn't mean
assault,
40.
murder.
Well, I mean, whatever semantics.
No,
Okay.
no, it's not semantics. The fact that you
Well, it is
avoid
because
that,
technically that's not the majority. It would
you're
be
sitting there, you are instantly desperate to pivot and go, it was our policy of having war on drugs and not rehabilitating drug addicts.
no.
That
My
is a
point is that
a
my
minor
point
part
is
of
like
this.
if we look at it, did did addressing the situation that way improve the conditions in the situation?
So at no point will you say, one way to stop mass criminality is for these people to get their shit together and they have to do it.
Because
And
people don't work like that.
it hasn't worked,
It's just
right? But it's not our fault. The second I won't put
I
up with
don't
it is
view it
when
as
they blame
like,
white
oh, it's
people.
like your fault that
Stop blaming white people and the system, which is code for white people, because they invented the system and they hold the system up.
well, no,
It's
it's a
just
system of like laws and how we handle situations that hasn't really fucking been working that well. So it needs to be addressed. It's not about
Well,
like
yes,
you
there's
have it,
tweaks and
you
stuff.
are so fucking responsible, or like, oh god, I'm gonna like self-flagellate because I feel so fucking bad for like my great grandparents being
Okay,
like
but
slave owners.
you mix up issues and you go on these different
Because to me,
tangents.
it's connected.
Look,
What am I?
no, you can talk about private prisons. You could talk about investing more in rehabilitation. You could talk about lowering or making certain drugs legal or lowering the sentencing on some of them. You can do all that, but that still doesn't address the huge disproportionate people numbers when it comes to who's committing these crimes. I mean, those policy changes, they affect all races. It's not just one race.
No, I think it would affect crime if we were focused more on
Yeah,
rehabilitation instead of
if
putting
you
people into fucking like little crime factories. That is what jails are.
no, that's what the inner cities are. That's what these family units are. If your parents are criminals and they give birth to you, I mean, how many videos have we seen where these bleep fathers are like teaching their kid how to shoot a gun and they're like 4 years old? The shit is
I
happening.
haven't seen those videos.
Oh
But
well, you're not on my timeline, but yeah, it's messed up.
it's not in my algorithm yet.
All right, so at your core, you want things to improve,
Yeah.
but I'm suggesting that is a good impulse and it's a righteous one. It's a good feature that you exhibit, but the way you go about solving it is just to point a finger and go, oh, boohoo to whites and everything's racism, and then you just scamper off.
Am
And
I doing
this
that?
this is the impression I get is this is, and it's not just you. This is a pattern from people like you, where nothing is solved. By your own admission, this doesn't work. Pointing the finger at white
No,
people
a
saying
lot of
fucking
a lot of what
racist.
people the conversation around these issues, yeah, it's a fucking shit show.
It
We are
is.
not coming up with good solutions.
Nothing is advanced. And look,
But there are people doing work. Like, I mean, I myself, I like work with people in like prison reform. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing you can do that helps other communities. And I'm not doing it because I'm like, oh fuck, like I'm white. Like it helps white people too, but it also obviously has impacted the Black community more. So that's part of my reasoning.
What I would suggest is one of my philosophies about the whole thing is this notion to get back at whites, to bring them down, to throw shade at them, to be negative towards whites. This notion, it comes from a psychological place, and I believe that the problem in America today is not white supremacy. That is insanely exaggerated to a comical degree. It is Black inferiority complex. They have a complex that they're inferior. What is it based on? It's based on how well they're doing. It's based off all these metrics that we can look at, and they feel frustrated and humiliated by the fact that they are not coming from a thriving community. Why are we not hearing Asians bitch about this? I mean, Asians were mistreated. Asians, there's racism towards Asians.
It's just like I don't think it's like
they are not bitching about this because they don't have a psychological chip on their shoulder because they weren't enslaved, and well, they probably were, but not in the recent context. And they just don't care. They're busy living successful lives. And that is what I wish everyone could get to. But I have no patience and I have no tolerance for people blaming the wrong people for their own shortcomings.
I just
and
feel
their
like
own failures.
looking at it as like blame isn't, I mean,
How-
at least
how
for
else?
me and then the conversation, it's not about blame. It's about like what we can do as a society to improve conditions based on
So-
like, yeah, of course, like, you know, I
When you
like don't get triggered, but yeah, I fucking benefit from like white or like the fact that like white people in general. I told you, shut the fuck up.
I'm triggered.
I'm so hyper fucking aware of like.
Oh my god.
All right, I'll try not to.
So
say
how was your
but
white privilege when you were getting beaten up in an all black school?
not in that scenario, obviously.
Oh,
but when
okay,
I was
so-
like fighting
What-
with a fucking police officer, when I was walking around a street being like, "Hi, can I buy some fucking crack from you?" Completely
No,
not like at all.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute. If you are messing with a cop, you are a little girl. You're a little girl. You have little girl privilege. This is not. This is a guess. You have now guessed that, oh, if I was a black, I would have been this, and everything's racist. The racism is in the
Yeah, I
air.
feel
and
pretty strong. I mean, if I was like a black male in particular, obviously, I mean, it's it's more.
It gets us nowhere. It's just a scramble job. It's just spurgy to just be like, oh my god. And you're saying you don't blame? You're not playing the blame game? What is you bringing up the war on drugs? What is you talking about structural systemic racism?
It's talking because
what
that
is-
is what I
what
think
is you
relevant. I
talking
think
about colonialism and
people-
slavery. This is you blaming white people.
No, I'm talking about the context in which is relevant that people, our ancestors did in the past. Yeah, but
Okay,
it's not
our
fucking
ancestors.
us, and I don't
I'm-
think that like
I'm a first generation American. We have nothing to do with it.
or
okay.
not you in yeah.
Yes,
whatever.
no, but no, it's not part of my collective guilt. I'm sorry. I'm not. I will not be guilted on something I didn't do. I won't be guilted on something my father did.
But I'm
let
not
alone my
tilted on
grandfather's
it
grandfather.
either. I'm just looking
You
at things
clearly
from a
are.
broader perspective.
No, you're looking at it from a demented perspective that helps no one. Now,
Really?
okay,
So I still don't understand how your perspective is like so helpful. Like,
no, I'm not saying it is.
uh,
Well, wait a minute. I am saying it is. I take that back. My perspective is an honest take about the situation. So I'm assessing the problem accurately, and I'm not blaming the wrong things. So if you go to a doctor and you say my knee hurts, and he's like, "Oh, okay, well let me rub your neck," it's like, dude, you're not being realistic about the situation. Please refrain from rubbing my neck. So look, please blame black people for something. Can you blame a black person for anything? Is there
like
anything
I
that they're
told you,
accountable for?
yes,
No.
I was bullied by black students, and it was like
Well,
it was
but
traumatic. Yeah, like
okay,
that didn't
so wait,
happen to me.
it's not because of the history of the generational wealth or the slavery or the
Well, but I
oppression
think
or the
all these
whites.
things are connected, but of course it doesn't
Oh,
absolve them of all personal responsibility. But that context,
good
to
lord.
me, the context matters.
What?
Human
Okay,
context matters.
Rebecca,
It's
listen. Do
relevant.
do unto others as you have them do to you. Do you notice that says nothing in the golden rule says do unto white people as white people do unto black people. It's not racialized at all. It's show respect. Don't beat up the white girl. Don't rob me. Don't rape me. Don't kill me. Don't be a moron. Don't rob the store. Why can't we expect this from our fellow man?
No,
Because
I'm
I can
saying
tell you the people in Switzerland expect it, the people in Germany expect it, the people in Australia expect it. Why are we supposed to give a pass and pretend like this is an atrocious behavior? This community is an embarrassment to our country.
oh my gosh.
And that
How
is
many people
true.
are watching this conversation right now?
700 people.
Oh my god. Okay.
You don't think it
Well,
is?
I just
13,
feel like you're not
3%,
absorbing my
3%.
point or perspective
Okay.
because when I explain why I think things are the way they are, you call it pivoting. So I don't know what else.
Yes, it's excuse making and you're blaming white people. You cannot end any thought about this topic without putting the responsibility of this atrocious behavior and failure. It's not
Well,
just
when we're
crime.
talking about like broad,
Economic failure from this community, you put on white people to a ridiculous degree, and we have nothing to do with this.
no,
We're
I
not
don't
going to
think
sit there.
there's like a horde of white people being like, huh, like how can we fuck over the black people today? I think
Exactly.
it's like there's a long contextual history that impacts humans so much.
Okay, so Coleman Hughes is going to make whatever money Coleman Hughes is going to make, and it's going to be significant. He is at an Ivy League school. I have not tried to stop him, to thwart him. I'm a fan of his. What am I supposed to? By the way, if a black in America does do well and succeeds, do I get credit? Do white people get credit for that? Is that part of the system, the white system?
I feel like you really just don't understand my perspective on it. It's like it's not about like credit and blame. It's about just talking objectively about the circumstances that led to the situation that we're in today.
And you don't. Okay, so point
And
blank,
like,
I'm
yeah, of
trying to
course,
ferret
like
out. Okay,
obviously there's a racial component to that, but it doesn't mean like I am like to blame or to credit for Coleman Hughes' success. Like
wait a minute.
some blacks are born into lucky circumstances, or
You are weaving all of your excuses and pivoting. You're weaving a tapestry of excuses. This is you avoiding holding people
see, but
accountable.
that's I know because I've had this conversation with many people with your perspective, and I know that's how it seems to you. But I'm
Okay,
telling you, this is what I genuinely believe based on the information that I've gathered from looking into
so
this all the fucking time.
could you answer me this? I want to flip it over and I want to talk about success. I want to talk about a young black person growing up in poverty. They get grants, they get scholarships, they go to school, they are hardworking, they get a job, they buy a home, they get married, they have children, they're successful human beings.
Mhm.
Do they get credit for that?
Like I said, it's not about like, oh, did
Wait a
they
minute.
get no credit or any credit? Like to some degree, yes, but also to some degree, they're a product of their
But see, this is a non-answer. That is a deepity. You've said nothing
because
when
it's
you
not
say
going
that.
to be an easy like you can't
Wait,
with the
so
most
wait,
complicated, nuanced social issues that have ever existed. You cannot just give yes,
but
no,
this is a
yes.
non-point. For me to say, obviously there are other factors and there's influences and there's things that have led to success in some part, but the lion's share, the main point is a person born into poverty who rises up, starts a business, is successful in life. They get the credit for that. I can guarantee you a black person who succeeds in life does not give credit to white people for that. But if a black person fails in life, guess who's taking the blame? And you don't call it blame, but it is blame. You are not holding them accountable for their failure.
I mean, do you really think that people are just born these like rational free agents who are like just not?
Yes, I think that they can influence
I
their
just don't
reality. Yes,
see
I think they
any
can do things.
data or like
There's no
observation
data
of
that
human
people
behavior
can
that like
change their life.
supports that viewpoint of human behavior.
But
I
that's the
just don't.
mentality of a complete loser. How could you think that? So you have no control over what you do in life.
No,
Like the choices you make are not
it's
choices.
Devin. It's
The nuance,
nuance. It is.
reasons, cause,
Dude,
effects.
these are
Nothing is
the most.
nothing. Everything is
These
nothing.
are the biggest fucking issues in humanity. Like it is
Okay.
fucking nuanced.
Oh fuck. Okay. So
So
do you realize that everyone can hide behind the shield of nuance? It's fake nuance. It's faux. It's faux nuance. It's
I
not
don't even
real.
know how to respond to that because it's
It's
like
pseudo intellectual. I mean, you follow pseudo intellectuals. They say a lot of bullshit. And it doesn't amount to anything. It's not actually a thought worth contemplating.
wait,
I
who are
mean,
you referring to? Like
Vosh.
it's always fun. It's
I don't know who else you watch.
every yeah.
Okay, like anyone can
I
do
told
this.
you I
Anyone
don't
could
completely agree with Fosh's
add
point.
complexity and run away and just drop a smoke grenade and be like, "Bye, complexity, nuance, see ya."
No, that's not what I'm doing. I've been in this conversation for 2 hours, not dropping a bomb and leaving. Like
I know, but that's what you continually go to that thing.
because to me it's inextricably linked. And no, it doesn't mean that there's no like that no one's responsible for any of their behavior. But like for me, for example, I don't know why I was able to stop being an addict and why many people aren't. But I don't think I'm this special person who just magically has more like free will and agency. I think that I happen to have fairly lucky circumstances that led me to be able
Okay,
to do that.
so that's a good topic. Let's move it off of race and talk about you and who is
Dear God, I
responsible.
don't think I'm like qualified to like discuss race in front of 700 people
I
anyway.
know, but here's the issue. It's a good conversation. I appreciate you being here, and you're a trooper. And I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to refine my
I
own
know, and I'm
theory.
not just talking to you. You know,
Yeah,
I understand.
I'm talking to 700 people too. So I mean, so what in
How's
terms of
everyone in
your,
chat doing? Is it how? What's the
I'm
vibe?
sure you're the new hot commodity. Do you want to tell them? Give me what's your link to what's your YouTube channel?
It's based femoid.
Give me a do you have a link? Paste the link in the
Even
private
though
chat.
I
And
doubt, I feel like most of the people here are probably not gonna be fans of
they
mine.
love you. They're crushing on you hardcore.
I'm
Based
sure. I'm sure.
femoid. All right, I'm gonna send a link. I'm putting it in the chat.
You already turned me
Uh,
into a star last night.
oh my god, you have over. She has 100 subs. Go give her a sub for God's sake. She's gonna make some new content. She's got some interesting ideas.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a clapback video at Devon.
No, it is a fun thing
After this, where I'm just
to
gonna be like, fuck him. Like,
it is interesting and fun to engage because I know we come from different worlds and we have different ideas on these things, but I think there's a lot of agreement mixed in to the sort of talking past each other. But let's talk about you and who gets credit and blame for your addiction. So I would guess
I
that
think it's amazing. Yeah.
you don't entirely blame yourself for the addiction, for falling into addiction. I would assume that there
No,
were
I was
conditions. What?
born into it, baby.
Okay, so parents, perhaps a little genetics, accessibility,
Maybe.
friend group. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of that.
Okay, so there was a lot of things at play that
A
made it.
lot of different factors, yeah.
Okay, so I understand that it would be stupid for me to be like, nope, you're a human, you have agency, you did the drugs, that's the end of the story. You're to blame. Now, on some level, that is true. In the
Yeah.
end, you did make these decisions. Nobody like forced you into this, right?
But I wouldn't have made those decisions if I had continued to have like very suburban,
Right.
boring life like I did for the first 10 years of my life.
If you were my sister and you were raised in my family, your chances of getting into drugs would have been 95% diminished. You know, like
Yeah.
there's no way. So I understand that, and it's a valid point. But people can misuse legitimate nuance and a legitimate discussion of causal effects leading to an outcome. Now, having said that, your recovery from addiction is not entirely given credit to yourself. I mean, you had help, you went into rehab, you had people, you had guidance, you had support. No?
I think I had enough bad things happen to me that it like I view it very much as like I was a product of my circumstances. I know you hate that, but like,
No, it's
do you think
it's
my
partially true.
circumstances led me to make a choice? If my addiction had kept been smooth sailing, or like a frog boiling water, but a bunch of very bad things all happened where I was like, oh fuck, like, and that,
Well,
yeah. And then
what?
also, yeah, the Suboxone helped a lot.
Well, a lot of the times in conversations like this, I think math is needed because we try to use words to express degree. So if I say, you know, bad parenting or a lack of parenting, a lack of a father is very important in the destruction of the black community. What am I saying? Am I saying it's 99% of the reason or am I saying it's 5%? So if you were to put a number on your personal responsibility in your falling into addiction, is that 50%? Is that 80? Is it 10?
So far as my personal responsibility,
Yes, that you hold
so
yourself
far as
personally
like
accountable for.
it's tough to say because it started when I was a child, like
Right.
I started using drugs very young. So it's like, from
Factoring
as a child.
factoring all that in, right? So
Yeah,
you
I
hold
would
you
say
hold a
maybe
child to a
like
different
twenty
standard.
percent, maybe
Okay.
20%.
Okay. So you were a victim of circumstance, and you were basically given you're dealt a hand that was not the best hand, and you got thrashed. But as an adult, the numbers change, the dynamic changes because you hold an adult to a different standard than you would a child. You are more in control of your surroundings, of your behavior. Your brain is more developed. So,
Yeah.
in terms of your recovery, I'm guessing that the number is higher than 20% when it comes to how much do you give yourself credit for overcoming.
Honestly, I would still probably keep it at 20%. I mean, unless you factor in that my brain finished growing, because I do think that's a huge component
Wait a
too.
minute. How is it that 80% of you getting off of drugs is not to do with you?
Because it was circumstances that I was in that,
But didn't you
pushed me in that
didn't you
direction.
create those circumstances?
See, this is like a really hard thing to quantify if I created the circumstances around me or if the
Well,
circumstances created
well,
me,
for example, if you check yourself into rehab, that's you making a decision.
Uh, I mean, but I don't know. Knowing me and the way that things went down, I don't feel comfortable being like, I made these big decisions. It was more like, oh, I was like taken to this place, like by
Oh,
professionals, or like,
so
you know,
people intervened and helped you, like held your hand through the process?
no. All right. For example, the first time I ever went to a detox, I was 21 and I went to the ER for like a psychiatric hold or something. And when I was there, I went into withdrawal and they brought me to some detox place. So it's like in that situation, for me, it's almost like fate. It's kind of like I I just went, it's like kind of like the path of least resistance, like,
Mm,
so
hmm.
that's why I don't feel like, oh yeah, like I'm this fucking big superstar who like turned my life around.
Well,
It's
it
like,
is interesting to me because I'm just wondering if you're giving yourself enough credit because I can't even fathom where the 80% is being filled in.
I don't know. I mean, like it's hard to like put a number to these
Well,
things,
look, you
obviously.
you experienced it. This is your what is
Yeah.
true for you. This is your opinion
But
about
it
it.
also goes to like my belief of like, does free will even exist? Or like, is
Yeah, but
everything
does
predetermined? You
see
know,
doesn't that isn't that a conversation killer? Can't we not
it
assume
is,
that we
but
have
that's
control over?
always factoring into my assessment of choices I've made. You know,
Yeah, but
it's
can't you see that that's an excuse that people just use as a get out of jail free card?
well, then what am I using it as a get in jail free card? Because I'm using it like against myself.
How? You're saying you have no free will, so well, I mean, you're not giving yourself
And so
credit.
far as like, getting,
Okay, so what is something that you have done in your life or accomplished that you own and you say, look, this was me doing this. It didn't have to happen. I made it happen. I get the credit for this.
see, I think we
Nothing.
just
You're about to
kind of
say
like,
nothing. Nothing. So you're just like a bag of molecules just bouncing around the universe, and you have no ability. Like you don't have tomorrow.
I
Your
mean,
to-do
we're all
list
just a
could
bunch of
be
fucking
anything.
natural phenomena. I mean,
Yes, but
you're an
there's
atheist. No,
things
like,
like
do you think like,
wait a
I
minute,
don't
we are
know.
involved in highly complex projects. Like I make really intricate videos. I'm traveling around the world. There's 1,000 things I'm doing every day. This is not random lack of free will. This is planned out, intelligent, thought
I
out
mean, I'm
behavior.
definitely not equipped to debate the existence of free will. I have
Oh,
mixed feelings on it.
so
I
you cannot point to one thing that you take ownership of and take credit for in your life that you've done.
no, I I get like a little bit of credit for sure. Like, in
Did you buy that T-shirt with Mickey Mouse on it?
Yeah, I did. That
So
was
you
all me,
chose the
baby.
T-shirt. You chose
I
it.
fucking bought it.
You bought it with the money you earned. This was your doing.
I mean, but that's such a like. That is not
Well, I'm looking for a baseline because you're saying
a
there's
baseline.
nothing
Okay.
that we can take on. And if that is the
I'm not
worldview
saying
you
there's
come from,
nothing. I'm just saying that I'm saying I don't know. I don't fucking know.
okay.
Like, there's I when it comes to like that stuff, I have like incredibly mixed feelings about it, and I have incredibly mixed feelings about addiction and free will because
Yeah.
the further you are in addiction, the less free will you have because you're completely consumed. You're like possessed. So, it's
Well, there's a little bit of a misnomer
yeah.
there because when you're on drugs, the drugs actually are
Yeah,
influencing
yeah.
your brain, and so
But even like when you're off drugs, you're still in the addict set of like
mhm.
your thought process is different. It's like
Yeah, there's a
a
need, and
complete made up fantasy delusion world you're in where everything's
mhm.
cool. Like it's all good.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. I mean, I've seen documentaries, people on meth and heroin. I think heroin actually, and
Yeah.
they're not even the same person. And family
Yeah.
members look at them and they're like, "This is a shell of the person I know. This is not
Yeah.
even a." So I could see that's an interesting examination when you talk free will plus addiction and drug use.
Yeah, it's a big mind fuck.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess I lean to the side of trusting in the fact that humans, I mean, we do have the ability to alter our surroundings in a very
Yeah.
methodical, thought out, premeditated fashion. I mean, I understand that we're not omniscient and we don't have a full mastery of consciousness, our own consciousness, subjectivity, all that. But still, even given that, we still operate in a way that would indicate that we are in control.
Well, we have to always like for your own sanity and to be able to even have a conversation. Yeah, we could just say like, oh, we have free will, or we should behave as if we have free will.
I just don't think it's as binary. I think actually free will is, like we're talking about, a nuanced thing. I don't think there
They
is
do.
a
I'm
yet.
telling you.
Yeah, but it's we don't understand consciousness, so it's a dead
But
end
see, and that's
conversation.
why that could go back to the race thing. Is like we don't fucking understand.
But we
Like
do. We have sociologists, we have scientists who study patterns when it comes to you know um, communities and whether they're
you can
succeeding or
study
failing.
patterns, but
Yeah,
there's like what I'm saying is there's a multitude of factors, and then also when it comes to like
we
I
study all of them.
specifically in understanding how the brain works, we don't know fucking shit about the brain. We like
Well, no, we're
look under a
early.
fucking
Yeah,
MRI and see like, oh, that part lit up.
I know,
Cool.
I
Maybe
know.
that
That's
means
true.
something.
That is
Like
true. We are in the infancy of brain science, but just because something's complex doesn't mean it's impossible to understand. And I feel like a lot of times people will just add complexity just to get out of it, just to get out of actually trying to ascertain something true.
I mean, it's just like my perception is. I mean, it like basically boils down to the whole like nature nurture thing. Like it's something that scientists and philosophers and everyone's been fucking debating for centuries. And
And,
I haven't unlocked a way to like get someone like you to
mhm.
persuade you to my viewpoint, and you haven't unlocked a way to get me persuaded to your viewpoint.
Well,
You
I'm not
know?
even sure if I've expressed my viewpoint. I mean, I think it's open for discussion. I don't think there is truly an answer
Yeah.
that you can say with any definitiveness. I mean, Sam Harris talks about it. When you start a sentence, you don't even know where the sentence is going. And you're sitting there on
Yeah.
the event horizon of every word that's coming out of your mouth. And it's all happening like automatically. You don't even
Did you read
know
his
what.
free will book? That's probably like one of the things that fucks with me. It's a real easy read. It's
Um,
like this big.
oh, yeah. I understand. I heard a podcast or two on that. But
Yeah, it's all basically the same
so
shit.
while it's true that if you really zoom in on how our mind works, it is a grand mystery. And we don't know where our sentence is going to finish. And that's part of the excitement that we are sort of a transcendent phenomenon of all these moving parts in our brain and all
Mhm.
of our previous experience and all of these impulses and all that. And that's what makes us so magnificent. But having said that, even though I don't know the end of my next sentence, I could still decide to stop talking right now. I can still decide to continue this conversation. I can throw my laptop across the room. I could go to McDonald's. I could do things that even within a world that is technically there is no absolute free will, I still have the power to manipulate how my life plays out. I
I
would
mean,
say that's a
yeah,
fair
that's
assessment.
yeah, no, that's like, I mean, that's the way I approach it, even if I'm still like so fucking mixed on free will, because it's like the fact is, you could say you make these choices, but if Sam Harris said the same thing, so you probably heard it, but like if you
Mhm.
go back in time under the exact same circumstances without having the future information, you would have done the same fucking thing you did. So that's the part
Yeah,
that gets me kind of like,
look,
I don't.
it is scary, and it actually does delve into religion and the concept of a soul and the
Are you
concept
into
of
that shit? Atheism is
no,
unstoppable.
no, I'm not into it, but I see the overlap, and I see the idea of who are you? What is your identity? What does
Yeah,
it mean to say
dude.
you are you?
I know. I wish I never did fucking psychedelics.
Right. Well, you've been through the doors of perception. What is it? You're on the other side,
Something
man.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You should teach us the lessons from the dream realm.
Oh
What,
boy.
you're dropping acid and smoking doobies.
Yeah.
So what does that dildo do for you? The e dildo.
It's a horrific thing. Also, here's a little PSA. Everyone in chat, never fucking buy the My Blue e-cig. This thing breaks all the time. I have to have it with a plug hanging out of it for it to work. I look like a fucking idiot. Like, never
Yeah.
fucking buy this thing. I'm just too broke to buy a new one right now.
Looks
So
like a black tampon with a string sticking out. Okay, so let us slowly and gracefully bring an end to this conversation. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I'm interested, and I want to inform the people watching what you plan to do in the near future. I mean, assuming that you have any free will left in that brain.
oh,
Um,
obviously I'm gonna do a takedown video of you.
yeah, after you ravage me and shame me on the internet, what do you plan on doing with your videos, and what would be a number of subscribers that would make you happy?
That would like satiate my need for attention and happiness.
Yeah.
Oh boy. It's nuanced. I don't know. But
Um,
I mean, I like interacting with people. So that's like generally,
you like
fun.
conversations, yeah? You're very good at having them, and I would like to watch more. I'm sub to you. How many subs do you have right now?
Oh, you sub to me? Really?
Yeah.
Aw. Do you have
Do
your
you know how
stuff
many?
hidden? I have no idea. No.
Do you know how many subs you have right now?
I think, well, after you turned me into fucking e-slib overnight, I like
Uh,
maybe had like 100 or something.
yeah. Yeah, I just refreshed. You have 200 subs now.
So shit. Fuck.
You
Well,
got 200.
look, my happiness level has increased.
There we go. You've been validated by
Even more
random.
attention, more val. Oh my! If they start smashing that like button, my happiness level will be
Yeah.
up here, dude.
Get over there, guys. Tell me that this girl is going to put in some effort. She has a little. What do you have? An iPad, an iPhone? What do you?
I made my videos on fucking iPhone. I swear to fucking God, I
iPhone.
knew that video was gonna fucking blow up. I would have put a little more effort into it.
You don't have a computer?
No, I have a really shitty, like,
Oh,
very shitty laptop. So
okay.
the iPhone is more
It's better.
It's better than the laptop.
Okay. Well, I think it's fun and encouraging, and I support content creators, even new ones. And I'd be happy and interested to see what you come up with. And I support our conversation. I'm glad we have had it, and I look forward to the next one. And
Yeah.
you're a delightful person and a success story. And I'd like to hear more about your past and all the things that you had to go through. If you're ever up for talking again, that'll be
No,
delightful.
I love to chit chat. I love the internet because I get to like have a social life without even leaving bed. That's my dream world, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's low maintenance. It's sort of easy
Yeah, I
to
like
do.
that. That's my goal.
And it's intellectually stimulating, and it can be fun. And
Yeah.
so stay above the fray, stay above all the nasty bullshit people out there, because there's a dark side to the internet. And when you're a girl, yeah, I mean, exactly. It's just, I'm protective of you. I don't want you to get disillusioned
Oh, you're
by it.
protecting. All of your fucking little minions came and swamped me this morning.
Yeah,
But I know it's out of your control. I know it's out of your control.
I know. I tell them to stop. And please, Vosh did a fucking video. There's like 80,000 people talking shit about me. So we all get it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm noticing that if you're new to this, it might be a little bit more shocking.
I'm not new to the internet. I'll say that.
Okay.
Like
But-
I've dealt with,
Fielding mass insults, mass negativity is not a normal behavior we're used to.
Yeah, but even today it was more like it was like a little bit exciting. Of course, the thing that sucks is when you were like, oh, but you don't understand me, But,
Yeah. Well, look, I think you're a sweet girl. I'm rooting for you. I would like to be your friend. I have no problem with you. I think you're wrong on many things, but you are whimsically wrong, and you're being wrong. Talk about talking about percentage. I think you are just a byproduct of your generation and the society as it is today. So I don't even hold you personally accountable for a ton of it. You're probably 20% responsible for your viewpoints.
I
So
probably agree with that.
yeah, so I'm using you as a conduit to criticize society at large and others, not necessarily you.
Maybe.
But thank you for engaging with me and joining me on this.
Yeah, it was fun. You were like, "Oh, do you want to chat for a bit?" I didn't realize it was gonna be like a whole fucking thing, but it was
I know.
it was a nice conversation. I appreciate it. So
I had no
thanks for,
control over it, and my brain was just doing its own thing. And,
No, I enjoyed it. It went better than maybe I would have thought that it would have gone.
you thought it was going to be a shit show.
Well, I don't know what the fuck to think, because there's who the fuck knows?
Well, yeah, I'm like Richard Spencer and Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, you're identical to them.
Yeah, totally.
Every way. So.
All right. Well, you're going to tell us your name now. Anonymous.
It's on my birth certificate. It says Femoid, so that's
Femoid.
Yeah.
Okay, that's child abuse. All right.
No,
goodbye.
I'll have to come up with a good fake name. If whatever.
Yeah, come up with come up with something. And well, put it this way: avoid the word "fem" anything, because people will get triggered by feminism. And based means you're on the right side of politics. So I would.
No, you can be fucking based.
Okay.
Left, and also
here,
that was a term co-opted from drug addicts like me.
So okay.
Double meaning, bitch.
You've taken the word back. So how about this? For one of your next videos, I want you to create a poll and ask your audience, be like, what do you think? What would be a cool name? Maybe give them some suggestions. Be like, here are my top 5 avatar names.
Rebecca.
Yeah, but it could be a name. It could be something more original. It could be like a title, or my name had no thought behind it. Like, it's not. It was just the name of my first video. Like, I wasn't even supposed to be anything. But yeah, think about it, because you could have an identity online and you could build off that rather than just some random thing.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I'm just playing it by ear.
I mean, even Vosh, even that stupid ass, whatever the fuck that is, at least it's different and intriguing. It's like, I'm sure it has some spurgy backstory, but I don't give a shit. But at least it's not like John Thomas. It's like, okay, it's something different.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll think about it.
Yeah, think it over. And guys, go sub her. She's a sweetheart. Thank you for chatting it up with me.
Yeah, that was fun. And thanks everyone in chat. I didn't see a word that you said, but I'm sure it's all very lovely.
Yeah. I think it's good to not look at the chat, but I'm sure they're.
Yeah. I learned that my first live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, you take care and sleep well.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.